ordinary circumstances to guarantee quality education for everyone. Thanks to our remote learning technological platform that makes learning possible anytime, anywhere. Because learning is about adaptation, education continues.
أنا عم بشتغل، فكان بدي الجامعة أقدر أشتغل وأدرس بنفس الوقت. فالسكادجول شفت is very easy تبع الجامعة العربية المفتوحة.
يعني أنت إذا وجدت مؤسسة أكاديمية تقدم مستوى تعليمي عالي جدا وبتكاليف مقبولة ومقنعة، يعني فعلا أنت هنا خدمت الإنسان. وأنا هذا الشيء وجدته في الجامعة العربية المفتوحة.
A decisive factor was the syllabus. When I went through the syllabus, I knew that this was something that could add to my or improve on my skills that I have, and especially in the job market of today, which is very competitive. I couldn't see another better syllabus than AIU's.
فينا نقول إنه إحنا كنا من الأوائل اللي استخدموا الأونلاين وبسرعة. إحنا كنا بنستخدم سيستم ال SIS وال LMS وغيره من البرامج اللي تخدم الأونلاين.
نعم، لقيت إنه نحن الجامعة الوحيدة الشغالة في وقت حقيقة عصيب كان على العالم كله وعلى السودان وعلينا نحن. في نفس الوقت ده حاسس إنه نحن الوحيدين يعني we can make it. Actually we are making it. ما توقفنا ولا لحظة.
دراسة اللغة الإنجليزية رح تأثر بالكارير تبعي as an Arabic teacher in a preschool. فرح تخليني أتطور كتير بمجال التعليم وبالاختصاص. أنا حابة إني أدرس لغة إنجليزية، ولكن حابة أدرسها عن اختصاص وعن شهادة إن شاء الله. فإن شاء الله بعد التخرج أكيد رح تكون لي الفرصة أكبر إني أنا أدرس بمدارس سواء ابتدائية أو متوسطة أو أيا يكن. فهي رح تكون بالنسبة لي المفتاح، الشهادة هي رح تكون لي المفتاح لهيك فرصة. وكأم أيضا بتدريس أطفالها رح تساعدني كتير بهذا المجال.
لأن العلم جزء من التكيف، سنواصل مسيرة التعليم.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
Kindly unmute the control room, please.
Yes.
Walaikum assalam, Professor.
عليكم السلام. دكتور سعيد.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, but we cannot see your bright face.
Why is that? Why is that?
Yes.
I can see you all. I can see you all.
Now we are blessed with seeing your face. أهلا وسهلا.
Okay.
كيف الحال؟
Okay, good morning, everyone. Delighted. Alhamdulillah, tamam. يعني delighted to be joining this sexual elite groups this morning.
إن شاء الله. نسعد بكم ونبارك لكم مقدما بزواج الابنة.
الله يسلمك يا دكتور موسى، الله يطول عمرك ويخليك. العيال كبرت.
بارك الله لهما وبارك عليهما وجمع بينهما في خير.
الله يطول عمرك ويخليك لك ولأحبائك جميعا إن شاء الله.
Good morning, Professor. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Andrews. Good morning.
Morning.
We are live on AOU channel now. Everything is okay.
هنشوف. Dr. Sherwin, we cannot see the.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes, now.
السلام عليكم دكتور محمد.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. صباح الخير جميعا.
صباح النور.
صباح جميعا.
شرفت سعادتك بوجودك معنا.
أنا بتشرف فيكم جميعا، تفضل.
جزاكم الله خير. Okay, Miss Amani, I think you can proceed.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته جميعا. Greetings to all. With immense happiness, Arab Open University welcomes everyone, ladies and gentlemen, researchers and authors from around the world, to the International Conference on Co-Creating the Post-COVID-19 World, focusing on exploring sustainable path organized by faculties of Business Studies, Arab Open University, Oman. Arab Open University was initiated by the late Royal Highness Prince Talal bin Abdulaziz in 1996 to be a unique educational project in terms of its goals and teaching method. Currently, the university consists of 9 branches around the Arab world, with a future vision to be a pioneering university dedicated to building the science and the knowledge society. We will start our conference with recited words from the Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام ميم. ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون صدق الله العظيم.
Sadaqallah al-Azim. This conference comes as a part of knowledge generation and dissemination initiative of our university with the community. The objective of the conference is to bring scholars from around the globe to discuss and to deliberate their views on rediscovering, redesigning, and reinventing strategies to overcome such difficult situations such as COVID-19 faced by the world. Now I invite Dr. Musa bin Abdullah Al-Kindi, Director of Arab Open University in Oman, to deliver the welcome address. Dr. Musa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Amani. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Dear Mr. His Excellency President Dr. Professor Muhammad Al-Zikri, my colleagues, Professor Saeed Al-Hallaq, our participants and keynote speakers, my colleagues, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On behalf of the Arab Open University Oman, I am delighted to welcome you all to this virtual conference, Co-Creating the Post-COVID-19 World, Exploring Sustainable Paths, which is organized by the Faculty of Business Studies at the Arab Open University in Oman. Arab Open University, since its inception, believes in developing an ecosystem that promotes and nourishes intellectual pursuit, knowledge creation and dissemination, and through research, teaching, and community extension activities like training and consulting. For more than a year, COVID-19 has rapidly affected the economy, businesses, trade, and movements, and in general, how we go about our lives. This virus has created significant knock-on effect on the daily life of people as well as the global economy. Economic growth and development have suffered directly and indirectly. There is still a great deal of uncertainty about the impact of COVID-19, and countries are taking efforts to limit the pandemic's human and economic effects. This conference and its accompanying book provide an insight into how organizations need to proactively co-create sustainable paths and respond to this crisis. All the 16 chapters under the 4 sub-themes economy, industry, enterprise, and education are highly relevant and contemporary to the present context. I believe that this effort will enrich the knowledge and ideas on how to find ways and means of exploring the sustainable paths for a better future. I would like to commend the Faculty of Business Studies at AOU Oman for taking up this initiative for the benefit of the society. I also commend the efforts taken by the editorial team and contributors for sharing their scholarly thoughts in the conference and book. I wish the Faculty of Business Studies to move forward to many such initiatives in the future, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you, Dr. Musa. Now I invite the President of Arab Open University, His Excellency Professor Mohammed bin Ibrahim Al-Zikri, to give the inaugural address for our conference. Professor?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. في البداية أود أن أشكر زملائي في الجامعة العربية المفتوحة في سلطنة عمان وفي عمادة برامج إدارة الأعمال الدكتور سعيد الحلاق وزملائه سواء في المقر الرئيس أو في الجامعة في سلطنة عمان على هذه المبادرة الرائعة لعمل هذا المؤتمر عن بعد والذي يفكر ويستشرف المستقبل. جميع الجامعات ومؤسسات التعليم العالي مرت بظروف قاسية أثناء جائحة كوفيد-19 ولا زالت تمر بهذه الظروف القاسية. الهدف من مؤسسات التعليم العالي أن توصل المعرفة والتعلم والتعليم إلى المتعلم، وأن لا يتوقف هذا الحق الذي هو من أجل حقوق الإنسان، أن لا يتوقف سواء كانت هناك ظروف قاسية أو لم تكن هناك ظروف قاسية. وبالتالي على مؤسسات التعليم العالي أن تستمر في إيصال تعليمها لطلبتها حتى في أحلك الظروف التي مررنا فيها مثل جائحة كوفيد-19. كما قالت الأخت أماني أن الجامعة العربية المفتوحة أنشأت عام 2002 أو بدأت الحقيقة في عملها عام 2002، هي أنشأت في عام 1996 كمبادرة من صاحب السمو الملكي الأمير طلال بن عبد العزيز، وكان هدفها أن تصل المعرفة وتصل العلوم إلى المتعلم لا العكس. ثم عززت هذا الهدف وهذه الرسالة كوفيد-19. الحقيقة كان من السهل على الجامعة العربية المفتوحة أن تتحول من نظامها المدمج إلى نظامها في التعليم الإلكتروني الافتراضي الكامل، لأن عندها أدواتها التقنية. ولكن أي مؤسسة تعليم كانت تستطيع أن تعمل هذا العمل، كانت تستطيع أن تتحول من نظامها الحضوري إلى تعليم افتراضي، لكن كان هناك تحدي وقف أمام مؤسسات التعليم العالي، تحدي كبير جدا جدا، وهو قضية كيف نقوم مخرجات التعلم في هذه المؤسسات. وبالتالي الجامعات التي لم يكن لديها مؤسسات التعليم العالي، التي لم يكن لديها هذه الأنظمة الجيدة في تقويم وتقييم مخرجات التعلم، ربما شعرت بالخطر وربما لم تنجح أن تستمر في قضية تعليمها. I should thank my colleagues to think about this future conference. This conference rely on the co-creating the world after COVID-19 and to think on how to be sustainable in the institution of higher education, so that we cannot stop delivering the education to our students. Thank you so much. I wish people will get benefit from the keynote speakers and all of the participants in the conference. جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
شكرا معالي الرئيس، سعدنا بمشاركتك. شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you, Professor Mohammed, for your inspiring words. We were delighted to listen to you. Now I invite back Dr. Musa Al-Kindi, Director of AOU Oman, for the release of the edited book.
It is my pleasure now to release and launch the accompanying book for this conference, Co-Creating the Post-COVID-19 World, Exploring Sustainable Paths. And we are proud that the Arab Open University contributes to sharing knowledge about the effects of COVID-19 by publishing this book and by holding this conference. So thank you to all the contributors and presenters.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Musa and AOU Oman Management. This conference is organized by faculties of Business Studies. Now I call upon Professor Saeed bin Sami Al-Hallaq, Dean of Business Studies and Law, Assistant President for Administrative and Financial Affairs at AOU Headquarters, also a prestigious author and researcher, to give the felicitation address. Professor Saeed.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, Professor Mohammed Zikri, Dr. Musa Al-Kindi, Director of Arab Open University in Oman branch, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. And actually, Mr. President has actually addressed the focus behind what we are doing today. As a part of contribution to the knowledge production and dissemination, the Arab Open University supports academic projects and research at the university. In this context, the Deanship of Faculty of Business Studies at the Arab Open University is pleased to commend the outstanding work done by Oman branch to prepare for this international conference today on the most related topic, co-creating a post-COVID-19 world, exploring sustainable paths, which in my opinion, it's a pioneering interactive way of thinking. As usual, we at the Arab Open University, as Mr. President has stated, usually thinking ahead of time, ahead of others. So we initiated this textbook, which we're going to be presented for the rest of the ceremony of this conference. The conference we are attending today will provide insights on the co-creating a post-COVID-19 world. The scope of the conference includes a wide range of sectors: economics, business, education, health, technology, oil and gas, supply chain, hospitality, mining, agricultural, and manufacturing. The COVID-19 pandemic crisis has led to many challenges and changes in the nature of business, which forced them to restructure process, implementing new plans for transformation, develop work methods, and change skills and future business trends. In this context, it is necessary for the economic, industrial, enterprise, and educational sectors environment to turn into a model different from what was before the spread of COVID-19. So we are talking about the era before COVID-19 and the era after COVID-19. Topics to be discussed today will focus mainly on key enablers toward innovation and economic development, effect of pandemic on corporate social responsibility, maintaining sustainable business-to-business marketing during pandemic crisis, and facing the threats that we are facing throughout and the after of COVID-19. In addition to realigning of priorities in corporate financial planning and what's called EHRM, which emphasize on the importance of entrepreneurial orientation in the COVID-19 era. In the same regard, today's topic mainly addressed new learning paths and reinventing strategies by educational sector to overcome challenges. So again, I would like to congratulate my colleagues at the Arab Open University for being initiative and initiate this outstanding work, which we are all sharing and enjoying participating the declaration and release of the book in question. The papers presented in this international conference is an important explanation of the long-term consequences of our present crisis. Many of us are so distracted by common struggles that we do not see the bigger problems at hand. Today, the presenters, which we salute and highlight, saying welcome aboard and thank you very much for taking the time and effort to present their words, moves back from the short-term uncertainty and take a straightforward and structured look at how them to make decisions in response to COVID-19. To this end, this international conference is suitable as a roadmap in explaining such as an effective management of health, financial inclusion, economic development, sustainable marketing, corporate social responsibility, technology, customer experience, financial planning, entrepreneurship, employee management, and digital transformation. They sincerely hope that this international conference will lead to a significant contribution on behalf of the Arab Open University to the world to highlight a roadmap to explore possible sustainable paths. So from all of us here, we would like to wish you a fruitful conference and God bless you all. And thank you very much for inviting me to address this speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Professor Saeed and the entire deanship at AOU headquarters. Now it's my pleasure to invite Dr. Mohammed Al-Hzazi, Assistant Director for Academic Affairs in Arab Open University Sultanate of Oman branch, to introduce and welcome our first keynote speaker. Dr. Mohammed, the mic is with you.
Thank you, Ms. Amani. Your Excellency, Professor Mohammed bin Ibrahim Al-Zikri, President of Arab Open University, Professor Saeed Al-Hallaq, Dean of Business Studies and Assistant President of Administrative and Financial Affairs of Arab Open University, Dr. Musa bin Abdullah Al-Kindi, Director of Arab Open University, Oman, honorable speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the organizers, Faculty of Business Study, OU, I would like to extend my warm welcome to all participants. So, good morning to everybody, good afternoon, in other word of the other area of the world, and welcome to this international conference on co-creating the post-COVID-19 world, exploring sustainable path. We are fortunate to have as one of the keynote speakers, Dr. Andreas Walmesley. Dr. Walmesley is Associate Professor in Entrepreneurship at the International Center for Transformational Entrepreneurship, ICTA, Coventry University, UK, where he is also postgraduate research director. Prior to this, Andreas worked for the Future Entrepreneurship Center at the Plymouth University, where he was discipline group lead for entrepreneurship and research lead for the RASI, Responsible Entrepreneurship and Social Innovation Research Group. Dr. Walmesley is currently research editor for the journal Entrepreneurship, Education and Pedagogy. He has contributed to, he is continued to conduct research and publish in this area of entrepreneurship and also tourism, where he has written and edited a number of books and published numerous journals articles. He is currently editing with colleagues a book on entrepreneurship education of Blagraf Macmillan, and he is coordinating a special issue on the entrepreneurial orientation and sustainability for journal Sustainability, and is editing special issue on the impact of research in the Journal of Sustainable Tourism. Today, Dr. Andreas will present the keynote address for this conference on the promise of an entrepreneurial orientation for sustainability in a post-COVID-19 world. Without much ado, I welcome Dr. Walmsley to deliver the keynote address. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your very warm welcome. I'm okay to share my slides now, I believe. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, please.
So can I confirm that everybody is able to see my slides?
Perfect.
Perfect, great. Well, again, thank you very much, firstly, for this very warm welcome. And I'm delighted to be able to present to you today. Congratulations on the conference and on the edited book. I look forward to reading a copy. So please send me a copy. That would be fantastic. So what I would like to do today is just run through some ideas that I'm in fact currently working on that are looking at the relationship between an entrepreneurial orientation and what I call a sustainability orientation. Some work has been done in this area, but I think there's still much scope to be done here. And I think particularly at this time, when we're hopefully emerging out of COVID, being able to understand how an entrepreneurial orientation married with a sustainability orientation can really set us on a path to hopefully a more sustainable form of development. So there's no need for me to tell you that we're in a crisis at the moment as a result of COVID. There's so many statistics out there that we could draw on. I've just picked this one, not entirely at random, but it kind of hopefully conveys the message that this is a serious issue, and it is a global issue. If we look at the statistics here, we can see that some countries, some regions of the world are faring worse than others. So not only has COVID-19, seriously affected the economies of nations, but there's also a growing inequality in terms of COVID impact. So to some extent, exacerbating existing inequalities when it comes to the impact of, for example, climate change and other sustainability issues in the world. So, we're facing a crisis because of COVID. That is understood. We shouldn't forget, however, that in a way, this is a crisis within a crisis. We as a planet, as a globe, as a community, global community, we are facing ongoing challenges that shouldn't be ignored. I'm pointing here in particular to the environmental challenges we face. I kind of regularly follow the World Wildlife Fund for Nature's Living Planet Index. So their reports are published every 2 to 3 years, and they have this thing called the Global Living Planet Index. And it's quite striking that, since 1970, so within the last 50 years, the Global Planet Index has fallen by 68%. So that measures the populations in nature. So it's looking at the decline in wildlife. And I mean that, within 50 years to see this massive decline is really, really worrying. And again, this is just one statistic of many that we could, illustrate, to use to illustrate, the kind of crisis we're already facing prior to COVID. So there's a kind of a double exigency on us to kind of tackle the crisis we currently face. One, we're already, before COVID, we could say in sustainability terms, the planet was facing a crisis. Now we've got COVID on top of this, but actually, and this brings me to my next slide, hopefully COVID might serve, and I'm guessing this is one of the reasons for the conference might serve as a bit of a wake-up call for us to reassess where we're at and what we want to do perhaps differently as a result of the crisis. So there's this expression, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, which is never let a good crisis go to waste. So even within a crisis, we can see, you know, there are opportunities, and of course, opportunity lies at the heart of entrepreneurship. We also are probably familiar with the idea of necessity being the mother of invention, and I would say necessity here is the mother of innovation. So again, we can see that you know, COVID, despite the disastrous effect it is having, and is, you know, is still having, both in terms of you know, the economy and society, and even the environment. You know, we should see this potentially as a critical incident where we can arise from this challenge and create, perhaps, you know, in a hopefully not too idealistic way, consider perhaps a different world coming out of it. I just draw attention there to Schumpeter as well. I mean, we're all familiar with Schumpeter's work on creative destruction. So COVID is not something that was deliberately, you know, planted, and as opposed to Schumpeter's notion of creative destruction, which is a deliberate attempt to, you know, reinvent and recreate existing structures. And Schumpeter was focusing on the manufacturing process. But what Schumpeter illustrates is that for something better to emerge, sometimes we need to kind of remove the old ideas and move forward. We can't cling on to existing beliefs and norms and ideas. So hopefully COVID might serve as an opportunity to reassess and reevaluate where we're at. Now, coming a little bit more closer to the heart of what I would like to kind of present to you today is, okay, so what can we do about it? What specifically can researchers, academics, such as us, you know, what is our role and how can we contribute? And I want to focus here particularly on our role as educators. Now, in you know, thinking about how we could tackle the current problems, you know, you could say there are three levels. There's a micro level, which focuses on supporting the individual firm at becoming more sustainable. Then there's the meso level and the macro level. So the meso levels is about formal and informal institutions in society, and the macro level is about societal trends and developments. So what I would like to focus on in this presentation is not at a kind of a policy making level. So I'm not focusing at macro and meso levels, but I'm looking at the level of the individual firm. And the idea here is that if we can make small changes, you know, across all these small firms, that, you know, the entrepreneurial firms in society, the result will be a big change. So as Lurbach said in 2010, it's about an accumulation of micro level innovations that then change the meso and macro levels. So very often we focus on the macro, but actually, if we can somehow enable our businesses, and particularly I'm thinking here of our new startups, you know, the small and medium-sized firms, to become entrepreneurial and sustainable at the same time, this can have a huge impact on sustainability in society. So the idea is to harness the power of entrepreneurship. We've already mentioned entrepreneurial orientation, and I'll discuss that in a little bit more detail shortly. And my suggestion is that we need to marry an entrepreneurial orientation with a sustainability orientation. So we end up with this thing that I've called sustainable entrepreneurship. Sometimes people refer to it as sustainability entrepreneurship, but this is where the power within entrepreneurship to innovate, to create something new and better, needs to be married with the idea of sustainability, or here a sustainability orientation, which will result in something that we call sustainable entrepreneurship. And I want to unpick these ideas in a little more detail now. So the entrepreneurial orientation, for those of you who work with this, I'm sure you're very familiar with the kind of conceptualization of what entrepreneurial orientation is. Typically, drawing on Miller's work from 1983, it involves, you know, innovation, proactivity, and risk-taking. So firms that demonstrate higher levels of innovation, proactivity, and risk-taking tend, by and large, to perform better than firms with lower levels of an entrepreneurial orientation. There was a paper published in 2009 by Ralph and colleagues. I think it was in the Journal of Business Venturing. I may be mistaken, it could have been a different one. But anyway, the paper clearly demonstrated, it undertook a meta-analysis of the burgeoning, literature in entrepreneurial orientation, and found that on the whole, firms that did demonstrate an entrepreneurial orientation were more successful. Okay, so we want successful businesses. That's the premise. We don't want to stop business. We want businesses to thrive. And so we want businesses to become more enterprising and demonstrate an entrepreneurial orientation. However, when we look at entrepreneurship, it's like so many things. It's neither a positive nor a negative. It does neither harm nor good. It kind of depends how we use it. Okay, so the idea is that, okay, we want firms to be more entrepreneurial, to demonstrate an entrepreneurial orientation, but not all entrepreneurship leads to broader improvements in society. There is a dark side to entrepreneurship as well as a positive side. So the idea is, okay, well, we want to support businesses to become more enterprising, but how can we ensure that the businesses in becoming more enterprising are actually delivering kind of a maximum value to society? What is the societal implications of these impacts of becoming more entrepreneurial? So entrepreneurship is neither good nor bad. It's what we do with it that really counts. And this is where the notion of sustainability orientation, comes in. So as you'll imagine, for those of you who've studied sustainability, we often refer to the triple bottom line. It's been defined as sustainability orientation has been defined as focusing on empathy, altruism, a pro-environment or pro-social attitude. And effectively, for me at least, I believe a sustainability orientation results from the individuals who make the decisions in the organizations, the owners, the managers, at least being aware of, i.e. taking account, the broader impact of their decisions. So if I decide to pay staff a lower wage or a higher wage, what impact does that have on, for example, the families of these individuals, just as an example? Or if I decide to go with the cheapest supplier, but who does not necessarily adhere to all the environmental standards, what implications does that have for the environment? So, one thing is very important for me, and I'm happy to explain this in more detail. I am not trying to kind of suggest, how people do things, but I would like our business leaders, business owners and managers at least to be more kind of aware and take into account the implications of their decisions beyond the firm. How does it affect the broader stakeholders? So what we're looking at here is sustainability or sustainable entrepreneurship. And there are different definitions. And I think for me, it's important to differentiate or distinguish a sustainability orientation from social enterprise. What I'm not looking at here is social enterprises, because I believe that somebody who sets up a social enterprise already believes in or has at heart the improvement of society and the environment. So those are the business owners who do not need convincing that sustainability is a good thing. So as I say, what we're trying to do, what I'm trying to kind of promote is among the business community, the regular business owners, not social enterprises, how do we make these businesses or the new businesses more sustainable? So it's entrepreneurship that takes into account the wider impact of entrepreneurial decisions, and it is putting sustainability at the heart of strategic decision making within the organization. So that's my definition of sustainable entrepreneurship. This is where we come to our role as educators, as not just the generators and creators or co-creators of knowledge, but our responsibility in educating the next wave of business leaders, the next generation of people who are going to make a difference. That's a huge responsibility. And this was recognized, for example, quite clearly in this quotation by Cooketts and Wagner, which effectively says that we have a responsibility, a duty to educate about sustainability in our curricula. Okay, now this is not new. I mean, people have this, have said this for some time. But my feeling is, and I could be wrong, but my feeling is that we're still some way off delivering, let's say, an ethical component in our delivery of our business education. So this is where we can now have a look at in a little bit more detail what in fact it means to be to deliver a sustainable or responsible education. I talk also about transformational entrepreneurship because I'm part of the Centre for Transformational Entrepreneurship at Coventry University, which also adheres to these ideas. So on the one hand, as educators in business and in entrepreneurship, we know that we should be preparing people in terms of developing their entrepreneurial mindsets, making them more, effective in their decision making. So conveying the skills and knowledge of how to create and sustain a successful business is obviously what we do. That's our role as business educators. However, what we also need to do, I believe, is go beyond the simplistic kind of this is how we make a better business, but we also need to ask the question, but for what purpose? Why? What is it effectively about? Why am I creating this business? Why do I want to be more successful? Which also leads to the question of, okay, if I make certain decisions, who is going to be affected and how? Coming back to my earlier point. So the real tricky thing, and this is something I'm still admittedly working on, is how do we embed then a sustainability orientation, or we could say an ethical dimension, into our teaching? So it's not anti-business. I'm suggesting we should clearly support the establishment of successful businesses, but how can we at the same time ensure that our graduates go away with an awareness and a knowledge, a recognition that the decisions they make about the kind of businesses they want to create will have an impact on broader society. So again, coming back to the point of making individual businesses more sustainable. So one way of doing this, and this is kind of almost the kind of pinnacle or the crux of my presentation, is focusing on this thing called higher level learning. Now, different people have described this in different ways, but it's all effectively, it's pretty much the same thing. So Huber in 1991 talked about changing our frames of reference. Argyris and Schoen have talked about double loop learning. There's generative learning or transformative learning, as Mesiro says. So the thing is, COVID now has given us this opportunity. It's a wake-up call to kind of reassess where we are. And I think this higher level learning is all about taking a step back from what we're used to doing and looking at the bigger picture effectively. It's asking ourselves not just about what we do, how we do things, but about what we do, why should we do it? So business schools are very good at providing techniques and tools to its students and their graduates on how to solve problems. But sometimes we need to take a step back and say, but what is the problem I'm actually looking at? Do I need to redefine the problem? So this is where higher level learning should come in. And I think where, as educators, we have a responsibility, and this is COVID presents the opportunity of kind of doing this now in greater depth and detail, is taking a step back and asking ourselves, well, what is it we actually want to achieve, both at a personal level in our lives, in terms of our careers, but also what are the implications for society? And there is some research that suggests that current generations are far more kind of willing and aware to consider kind of the value of what they're doing to society. So without going into too stark kind of generalizations, but it suggested that generations X and Y were more kind of career orientated in the sense of making money was the most important thing. Whereas today's youth and the graduates we face today, we're looking at today, are kind of more concerned about, whether the company they're going to work for is actually an ethical business, and are less willing to work for an employer who flouts, the ethical side of things. So to summarize, there is a crisis, but we can see this as an opportunity, a quasi wake-up call. Entrepreneurship, we shouldn't forget, is neither a good nor a bad. It's a means to an end. And so we should think about it as a force for good, but we need to make it a force for good. So for the sake of ourselves and our future, and not least for the future of our children, we do need to harness the power of entrepreneurship. It's incredibly powerful, this entrepreneurial orientation, but combine it with a sustainability orientation. So the target is sustainable entrepreneurship, but how we get there, that's the big challenge. And I think at a micro level, so at the level of the individual firm, we as educators can ensure our students develop a certain level of critical thinking, develop a higher level thinking skills, so that at least get them to consider the implications of their actions. Now, I'm not suggesting this is going to solve all of our problems, but it is a step in the right direction. And I think we as educators and researchers do have a responsibility to ensure that the graduates that go into the world of work and create their own businesses have this understanding of the impact of their decisions on society, not just on themselves. And with that, I'd like to thank you. I hope that was interesting and useful. And shukran jazilan again for the invitation. And I don't know if we have time for questions, but thank you very much.
Ms. Amani, I suggest that we ask if Professor Muhammad or Professor Saeed would like to have any comments. We will be glad to listen to them.
Okay. Yes, Dr. Musa.
Please go ahead.
Yes, after the permission of Mr. President, actually, I was actually listening to the presentation conducted by our colleague from one of the latest university in entrepreneurship. And actually, I gained a lot of knowledge and information, and he summarizes it in just one line. Actually, don't let an opportunity let go. Actually, COVID-19, we're not just looking to the black side, we are looking to the other side. It has transformed difficulties into opportunities, and we have to take advantage of this. And I think, as a human being, we are being come across all of these forms of difficulties. So it's a do or die. I think now we are opening up channels of developing, upgrading, doing things ahead of time. Actually, I attended the what's it called, the fourth revolutionist seminar conducted in Dubai. They were talking about, not today, they are talking about people starting losing jobs, starting to move to remote education, etc., etc., etc. But they were talking about 2030 almost. Now, Corona has reduced the gap. Now we are approaching 2021, and we are facing with challenges, difficulties that we're supposed to be doing in 2030. So things have been accelerated. And I think, our colleagues actually give us a hint that it is neutral. It depends how you're going to go about using and abusing. From our side, as a Faculty of Business Studies, and actually, I believe on behalf of my colleagues, I think we are capitalizing on taking advantage of what we have. So what you are saying is absolutely, I agree. Now we are gearing out, not only to talk about knowledge, me and my colleagues starting to prepare the assessment and the delivery to focus more on skills rather than knowledge, because the new era actually is requiring to be equipped with skills, not only knowledge. Thank you very much for a very fruitful and nice presentation. Thank you, Dr. Musa.
Thank you, Professor. We have still a few minutes until the next keynote. I'm here interfering in the role of Ms. Amani, so please forgive me, Yani. But since we have a few minutes until the next keynote at 1 p.m., so if any of the participants present, especially Professor Muhammad, or if you would like to say something, otherwise any other participants. You are muted, Mr. President.
I should thank Dr. Walmsley for this very well informative presentation, and thank you for all of you. It was very nice and very deep about how to think in the future, and how to accommodate the best knowledge, the best skills, the best benefits that we can take with us to the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I will take it from here.
Yes, now I give the responsibility back to Ms. Amani.
Sure. So thank you, Professor Dr. Saeed as well. Dr. Andreas from Coventry University, very informative presentation. Now I invite Dr. Kabali Subramanian, faculty member of Business Studies at AOU Oman, to introduce and welcome our second keynote speaker. Dr. Kabali.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon from Oman. Your Excellency Professor Mohammed bin Ibrahim Al-Zakri, President of Arab Open University. Professor Said bin Sami Al-Halak, our Dean of Business Studies. Dr. Musa bin Abdullah Al-Kindi, our Director of Arab Open University, Oman. It is indeed my pleasure and privilege to introduce today's second keynote speaker, Engineer Maqbool Al-Wahabi. Engineer Maqbool Al-Wahabi is the Chief Executive Officer of Oman Data Park, ODP, the first managed and cloud service provider in Oman. He is part of the executive management and the founding team member to establish ODP and has been instrumental in developing solutions tailored to address the banks, financial institutions, oil and gas sector, healthcare, government, education, and professional services sectors. Engineer Maqbool has more than 20 years of diversified experience in ICT engineering, software development, business startups, and leadership. He holds a master's degree in computer software engineering from University of York and an MBA from Strathclyde University, UK. Engineer Al-Wahabi was named as Technology Person of the Year at the annual IWA Awards in 2018, which also gave Oman Data Park Excellence for Global Cloud-Based Services in 2019. Oman Data Park is currently serving around 600 corporates, ranging from large to mid-sized and small companies. Let me take the pleasure of inviting Engineer Maqbool Al-Wahabi. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Kabali, and thanks to Arab University, Arab Open University for this chance. And again, thank you all for having me in. I'll try and share my slides. Hoping that technology will be on my side this time. So please let me know if the slides do appear.
No. Noted.
Can you see my slides now?
Yeah, it is sharing. Maybe few minutes. Maybe it is started.
You can also come a little bit closer to the microphone or laptop so that
sure.
we hear you better.
Yeah. So am I set? Do you see my slides now?
Yeah, we see it.
Yeah,
yes,
great.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you again. Basically, I'm the CEO of Oman Data Park. I'm not in the academic sector, so excuse me for being a little bit direct, maybe on the subject, and maybe I'll share with you some of our challenges when it comes to dealing with the market during the COVID-19. Luckily, as a cloud service provider, being part of the technology sector, we have been doing okay during the pandemic, like any other international technology company. And you might guess that maybe technology sector was the winner during the COVID-19. So luckily we were in the right side of the story. Not always, but this time, yes, it did serve us, hoping that in the future we'll have the same, we'll be in the right side again. So unlike the other sectors, the aviation sector, the health, hospitality sector, retail sector, all those, the food industry sector were very badly affected, as you know. But the technology sector were seen as a rescuer during the COVID-19. And we're going to talk about this maybe in the next slides. So basically, to start with, as we know, the acceleration forces when it comes to the market and the technology in particular, there are three exponential acceleration forces, as we all know. There is the market dynamic. And unlike the old days where globalization were referred to as ship movement from one country to another, and that is basically purely the logistic side of the story. Today, when we say market dynamics, we mean digital globalization, and that's what we are experiencing right now. So there is a lot of digital transactions happening across the globe from one country to another, be it financial transactions or be it sharing of information like the social media platform, or be it again trading using digital means and digital platforms. So that's the market dynamic part of the story. There is also the mother nature. And there is the climate change that we are experiencing, population growth and health crisis, as we can see in COVID-19. Those are, again, either an acceleration or a deceleration means when it comes to the market dynamics. And there is the more slow part of the story. As we all know, 1965, it was stated that speed and power of microchips would exponentially double every 24 months for 52 years. And when it comes to more slow, we understand that technology devices as an effect is getting smaller and smaller. There is the microchip companies that are producing microchips, which basically sits in our technology devices like PCs, laptops, and phones. Those are getting at a micro or a nano size. Today, we are at 7 nanometers when it comes to a microchip's size. And just imagine how much can that accommodate, and how much transistors can that nanometer chip size can accommodate and produce as a power and speed to our devices, be it phones or PCs or any electronic device. So these are the three, according to us and according to practitioners in the market, we see that those three forces does actually play a vital role in basically accelerating or decelerating the market movement, and they do affect different sectors, multiple sectors sometimes, and that is what what happens during the last decade. Today, if you ask me, it is the health crisis in the second bullet point, which had basically which had impacted different sectors that we live with, and again, be it accelerate or decelerate, act as a deceleration force or an acceleration force, that is something arguable. The year 2020 was, one of those years that unforgettable years when it comes to the way we maneuvered as a market practitioners around it. So COVID-19 has become a pandemic. As we all know, countries have responded with the region-wide lockdowns, of all non-essential businesses. The IMF has announced that global trade will contract between 13 and 23%. Profound changes to business models are materializing in order to seek sustainability and adaptability when it comes to maintaining and sustaining a business unit. Businesses across a range of industries have been forced to drastically reduce their operations, or in some cases actually have closed permanently. So there was a great amount of businesses that have been impacted negatively. On the other hand, and that can be seen as a contradictory factor. Some businesses have expanded their operation, in fact, like Amazon, Walmart, FedEx, Pepsi-Cola are hiring to meet spikes in demand. Amazon is also triggering to hire more than 100,000 new employees. There is some Scandinavian company called Comprere. It's a startup providing one-on-one video consultation aimed at healthcare. And they've been doing great in the healthcare sector, providing healthcare consultancy digitally. There are a lot of these innovative thoughts that have been brought forward, like online training gyms, for instance, just to keep people healthy, because COVID-19 had made everyone sit at home for quite long times, and body needs some sort of an exercise. They cannot go to the gym anymore, so there was a lot of these online training had been in place in order to sustain the business in one side and maintain the healthiness factor on people. So this is the year 2020, and then as an analysis from a framework perspective, this is Gartner, and they've done a great job in actually providing some sort of understanding on what had happened and how can businesses maneuver around them. So if you look at what happened, there was like a lockdown period, and that lockdown period had impacted a lot of businesses, as I said, being positive or negative. Then there is of course, with those lockdowns, there is the legislative aspect have been imposed on how and when those businesses can actually do their businesses, if you like. So the working hours have been very much strictly identified, and there was a reopening stage where there is basically subsidized trade restructuring had happened within those organizations. And then we will get into the new normal. And then from there, we are actually moving towards a return phase. So if we look at the blue line at the top, just a scenario for businesses that goes into the lockdown period, they move to to the reopening phase, and then they will move down to the new normal, and then they return safely to their baseline. And that is the best case scenario, if you like. But then there is a worst case scenario at the red line in the bottom, where you can see lockdown has impacted organizations and their reopening had been very much impacted. Some of them has sustained and some of them had to shut down. And those who had actually managed to maneuver around them, they go back to the baseline returning phase in number one. But then between those blue and red lines, there is a lot of things happening. And there are some would basically go at a rescaling mode after the reopening phase. And that's where you see number 5 there. So that's what organizations in the technology sector in particular would have to actually think about doing. Organizations like Oman Data Park, like us, for instance, we were there in the reopening phase. We were maintaining ourselves. Now we have to think about how to rescale back and make use of this pandemic in a positive manner in order to rescale and uplift our P&L and balance sheets, if you like. However, there are also others, like you see number 7 here, have been emerged, and a lot of these businesses and startups had actually emerged and were created during the pandemic lockdown period. So it's a new innovative thoughts, new companies have managed to get themselves in, and that's where number 7 actually show itself as an innovative startups reinvented themselves back. And another way of looking at it from a purely negative perspective, you can see the retiring phase at the end during near the baseline. So there is a lot of companies have retired and have gone, have shut down. There are also other companies, and like number 2, have reduced and their sales, and basically they've been impacted temporarily on their balance sheet. They might recover back again in the future, but then until then, they will actually have to suffer a little bit until they get themselves to at least the baseline. So these offers and the different impacts on different organizations in the business sector. So basically, when we ask ourselves, what have happened here with some of these companies and the market in general? Have we gone from the old business model to the new business model, or are we actually moving from old business models to a low-cost old business models instead? So this is showing that when it comes to the banking sector, for instance, and that is the red line, the red dotted line that you see, from 2018 to 2022, according to Gartner analysis, we only shifted from old business model to low-cost old business model, rather than boosting ourselves to a new business model, which is sustainable. We are not yet there, and we see that things will get there in some point of time. However, still in 2022, we are still talking about moving, to a low-cost old business model. In the Gulf Cooperation, the GCC, again the same, not different. 2018-22, we can also see that the oil and gas was a little bit lagging in terms of moving to even a low-cost old business model. They are still within the same business model that they operate. And that's true for trade as well, which is the black line. So the red line, the banking sector has been faster than any other sectors in getting themselves to at least a low-cost old business model. and they are moving towards a sustainable new business model, and they are superseding other sectors like oil and gas and the trading, different trading. Here we mean logistics, and we mean other trading means. And this is interesting because it shows how much consumer-oriented is the banking sector. This is directly proportional to how close those corporations to consumers. During the COVID-19, a lot of these models and business models have been influenced directly by the consumer behavior that have, exercised itself. There is a lot of these consumers are not favoring going in a physical mode to branches anymore. They wanted to have, they wanted to do a lot of these tasks digitally, using some digital means. So the oil and gas is not really consumer-based here. It's more of a national trade, and it's more of a country-to-country kind of trade. And that's why we see them a little bit lagging, although they are actually moving towards that low-cost oil business model. But then because of the fact that they are not direct consumer-oriented, they've been a little bit lagging there, unlike the consumer-based business units, like the banking. Sorry. So in a way, we can see that consumers during the COVID-19 were dominant and were basically influencing how business have been created or exercised. In this slide, we can see that basically what are those percentages of Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC respondent, and increasing towards digitalization, if you like. So if you can see that the use of digital channels are being, 2020, 2021, they are very, very much in an increased mode. There is the use of self-service is very much demanded by citizens today. And we will see that 2021 will supersede even 2020 in the way that customers will be served. They will be more towards self-service. Demand for new digital products, again, will be increasing during the 2021. And this is obvious. Degree of customer engagement, again, will be very much expanding. So in a way, we can say that COVID-19 has been the catalyst towards digitalization. Not only that, but there is a great influence from consumers to the business models and the way that those organizations operate, and adapt themselves to a new means of reaching or channeling their products to the consumers. Changes in IT due to COVID-19 has been very much explicit here. So a lot of fundings of digital innovations will be there during the year 2021, and it will increase compared to 2022. Strategic means and tactical means of maneuvering and reaching customers through different window channels and different go-to-market channels will be there. And 2021 will supersede again 2020 on that. The IT headcounts will be very much tremendously increasing. So there's going to be a lot of demand on IT experts for corporates to be able to digitalize their businesses and have a better reachability to their customers. Investment in training will even be higher. So, which again take us to the fact that COVID-19 will be a catalyst. It will basically push forward in an exponential manner the digitalization and the gig economy that we talk about always. It was there. It was moving in a good pace, but then what happened during COVID-19 will just make it faster, and that in itself, that impact in itself can be positive and can also be negative on corporates and consumer behavior, because a lot of these corporates might not be ready for it yet, and a lot of consumers they might not be at the same awareness level to deal with these different digital channels and be able to maneuver around them. So in a way, adaptability is now the key factor. In COVID-19, we are up against Mother Nature. It's the health crisis, and it's a fact of life, if you like. And who does this health pandemic reward is not the smartest, not even the strongest, but the most adaptive. So to maneuver around this pandemic, it is required that a corporate would have an option-based strategy. With option-based strategy, we mean that they provide different means and different options to consumers and corporates to be able to reach to them, and different go-to-market channels, be it through purely marketplaces and digital means, or other means like through telecommunication, through phones, and through other innovative means. Corporates has to have the agility, so they have to really impose an agility strategy, and with that we mean they have to be fast in the way they adapt. They are against time. Time is not in the favor of corporates that used to operate in a slow mode or on a conservative mode, because this pandemic had its year in year 2020. Now we are in year 2021, and we are still talking about it. We are still living it. It is still there. The virus is still there, and lockdowns are happening in different nations at different timings. Here in Oman, for instance, in this week there is lockdown periods from 8 p.m. to next morning, early morning. I think it's 6 a.m. or something for some of the sectors. And so we are still living this pandemic. And that's where agility and fast decisions in large corporates in particular, I'm talking about corporates that holds 1,000, 3,000, 10,000 employees within it, especially in the oil and gas, logistics, and other corporates. They have to really get away from their existing speed into some sort of an agile mode. The ability to change course, that is very important. Adaptability is the key factor. What is happening right now is there. It's a fact of life. So we need to adapt to it. We need to seek ways in order to provide means and ways in order to reach our customer. In the education sector, we understand that a lot of these academic institutes, universities, and colleges were very much adaptable, and they started producing and they started actually conveying their courses online in different means. They were quick, and that's a great thing. And because they didn't want to let go, the fact that they don't convey the knowledge to the students, to their students and communities. So they've done very much a great job there. Getting the right skill set to adapt for change will be a challenge, and that is a challenge within every corporation, be it academic or non-academic, or maybe in different sectors. A lot of sectors, they still don't have what we call a chief digital officer. Chief digital officer is very much important, and he's not the chief information officer. He's not the IT manager. Chief digital officer, we mean a guy who actually very much aware and maybe comes from the business background of that organization, and he has that caveat within his knowledge of the technology side of the story, and he's the guy who actually understand how to transform that business digitally and how to be able to come up with new business models and new ways of serving customers, and therefore safeguarding the balance sheets of that particular corporation. So he's a vital component today, and that skill set is not really easy to get, but then cooperates has to fetch for that individual, and that could be a key factor in the sustainability and of that particular organization. So as a cultural level, we need to be very much transparent today within our corporation in order to convey the right messages internally and externally. There should be a great emphasis on the communication part, especially internally within the organization, because things are changing every single day, and agility and adaptability have to be there. Lockdowns actually happening. We don't know what's we cannot schedule our meetings anymore like before for the next month. Before the pandemic, our calendars can easily hold meetings and events for the next 6 and 12 months during the whole year. Today, we cannot do that anymore. We don't know if the lockdown gonna be harder next week or next month, or gonna be even loose. And that in itself creates some sort of a distraction. We don't know how much we're gonna make next month, because if there is a lockdown and I am in the restaurant industry, I might be really impacted. The logistic and the supply chain of the story would also be impacted. I don't know if I am gonna, have, my store filled up with merchants ready to be dispatched for next month, or maybe that those merchants, especially if it was food, will be impacted if the lockdown will be there. So it's a very unique situation for different sectors, and challenging as well. And that's why communication, transparency, and adaptability should be there. Trust should be there also with our customers, and we should try and keep them. There will be a need to shift from classical waterfall strategy to delivery-based strategy, and that's exactly what I was talking about here. Waterfall strategy does not imply anymore in this COVID situation. We don't know what's going to happen next month, so planning like before for a whole year might not be possible today. So that's why we need to have a delivery-based strategy in order to maintain our balance sheets. We need to study or reassess value propositions. Our customer needs has to be very much understood, and financial aspects, especially the cash flow aspect of an organization, have to be really very much looked at and managed very well. The game is in the cash flow statement. If the cash flow statement is rich, you can maneuver around this pandemic. If there is no cash flow, there is no gas, and basically a lot of these organizations tend to shut down. So the cash flow is one of the statements that COVID-19 practitioners have to really focus in and try to engineer, if you like. Employees and ecosystem has to be looked at. The right employees has to jump in. Unfortunately, there are organizations which had to lay off a lot of these employees. That's the bad side of the story. But again, that's a fact of life. But then there is also a good side of the story. There are a lot of these employees have been, upskilled to work on a digital environment, and the right ecosystem around us has to be there. In the education sector, for instance, we see that education institutes today have a great ecosystems of digital cooperations around them. So they are very close today to cloud service providers. They are close to digital and digital platform providers, solutions providers that will serve their academic needs in order for them to be adaptable and to be agile. You need that new ecosystem around you more than before. There is the need to change business models as we speak. Businesses that will boom after the pandemic are those that are, things like digital marketing, online education. Those are basically the businesses that will channel itself after the pandemic, post-pandemic period. Online collaboration tools. There is the e-commerce, as we can see, Amazon, Alibaba, and others, Souk.com, and there's a lot of e-commerce solutions available that have managed to get themselves. Those are the big corporates. But then even the startups who provide e-commerce through digital means have managed also to get themselves across to consumers. Technology-driven agriculture, that's a very interesting aspect, a very interesting business that had brought itself from within the pandemic period. We can see a lot of technology-driven agriculture is now in place. Unlike the classical way of doing agriculture in the past, today there is you can have a farm which is technology-driven, a lot of sensors, a lot of Internet of Things, a lot of AI, artificial intelligence, have been imposed to those in order to reduce the cost in one way and improve productivity in another way. And because it is digitally driven, it sits on top of a digital business model that can have better reachability to consumers. There is the gig economy that we are talking about today, which will see itself very fast. A lot of countries today are moving away from the oil into the gig economy. Electric vehicles is one of a good example here, where EVs, electrical vehicles, will basically boost itself even faster during this COVID-19. We can see a lot of countries are beginning to embrace the idea of substituting oil or carbon hydride cars into EVs, electric vehicles, into batteries. Having said that, there is a challenge that the world will be facing around legislation. As I said, the acceleration mode that COVID-19 had imposed in a lot of these new innovative means, especially the digital means of serving customers and corporates, has to also imply with and comply with the legislation factors. And we can see that legislation bodies are not necessarily ready for this, and they are not as fast as the digital innovation that have been brought forward and accelerated during the COVID-19. I'll give you a good example of that is the fintech solutions. There is a lot of fintech. So because of COVID-19, a lot of people don't like to use cash, for instance. They like to use their mobiles to pay. And for that, there's a lot of digital currency and digital means of paying has been imposed in different nations. There are some countries are getting themselves ready from a legislative perspective. The others might not yet. There's another example around Bitcoin, for instance. We all hear about Bitcoins. Again, Bitcoins in some states like the United States has gone to the extent that they see it as an asset, a financial asset, but not necessarily as a currency yet. So a lot of these central banks around the globe has to really be in a faster mode in order to embrace and make it easy for people to pay using digital means. This is only one example, but again, when it comes to legislation, there is always the legislation versus the speed of innovation, and those two are always competing and trying to adhere with each other. So in a nutshell, basically, if you can see the graph there, there is the human adaptability factor, but there is the technology factor also, which is speeding up in an exponential manner. So there is, the strange part where technology supersedes the human adaptability speed. So there is an asynchronous kind of relationship there that could be good and could be bad. We can see that every single morning we have different technologies have been brought forward, and humans might not be in favor of pulling themselves forward in order to embrace them and use them. Today we're talking about artificial intelligence, for instance. We're talking about Internet of Things. A lot of these use cases around AI and IoT, there's a lot of corporate find it a little bit unready to even discuss the use cases around them because they see them as complex. They need time to embrace these technologies and be able to make use of them in a proper manner. And that's where the disproportion, if you like, happen between the adaptability factors within human beings and the technology speed, exponential speed, because of the factors that we have explained in our first slide, especially with more slow speed of innovation. With that, I'm going to go into my last slide, hoping that I'm still within the time allocated. Just to give you a glance of Oman Data Park, how Oman Data Park has managed to help a lot of these corporates. Oman Data Park is a cloud service provider. So what we do, we actually, we provide the platform for a lot of these corporations, or basically consumers or corporates, to be able to reduce their cost in this period. Cost reduction is by moving them from the classic way of having their own IT hardware into the cloud. The cloud is less cheaper. The cloud, again, provides you with means of paying in an OPEX manner. So operational cost here will be impacted. So we pay per use basis rather than paying upfront. And that has a positive impact on the balance sheet and the cash flow sheet of that corporation. So cloud is a starting point for corporation to move forward, even in the digitalization journey towards having their own product and services and having their own platforms. I give you a good example that had happened to us last year. We have managed to get banks in Oman on board in less than 48 hours. When the lockdown period, during the lockdown period, and provide them with solutions, cloud solutions, where they can actually operate from remotely operate as if they were inside the bank. So a lot of employees were actually forced to work from home in a secure manner. And just imagine that, you know, having banks employees work from home securely, you know, was considered a challenge, but through cloud and through the imposing the right application there, we managed to do it. And not only that, we managed to do it in a very short time period. That was a weekend, actually, less than 48 hours. As I said, that is the adaptability factor that I was talking about. Now, for a bank to decide such thing in a normal circumstances, that could take a while. But then in COVID-19 cases, you don't have that luxury of time, and you have to actually, you know, maneuver around this in a very fast mode and very fast way. With that, I'm closing my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Engineer Maqbool, for well-presented keynote about the challenges faced by COVID-19 and how the IT sector and other sectors have responded, including education. I hope we benefit all from this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Kabadi, Oman. Thank you, Mhandis Maqbool Wahaibi. It's always interesting to get market insight, to bridge our academic knowledge with the industry. Thank you all for being very patient with us during our opening session for this conference. Now we will have less than 30-minute break, and then we will start our 2 parallel sessions on the theme industry and enterprise and economy and education.
Okay, just to remind everyone that we will have 2 links. The main link, which we are right now, will continue with the first parallel session, and the other second parallel session will be on a different link. All that is clearly indicated in the program schedule, which has been sent to all of you. So thank you very much, and we will meet in about half an hour, exactly at 2 p.m. Oman time, to start the 2 parallel sessions. And then we'll meet again at 4 p.m., 2 hours later, for the concluding and closing remarks. Thank you very much. We'll see you in half an hour.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Keynote sessions. So this afternoon, we are going to start the session now. So this session, parallel session 2, will be on economy and education. To chair this session, it is my privilege and pleasure to welcome Dr. Amar Samur, our chair of this afternoon session. A brief introduction about Dr. Amar Samur. Dr. Amar Samur is faculty in marketing and program director, MSc Management with Marketing at BIBAC, University of London. Prior to this, he was lecturer in marketing at Coventry University, Brunel, University London, and before that at several universities in Jordan and Middle East. Dr. Samur obtained his PhD from Brunel Business School, Brunel University, London. His PhD has been awarded the Vice Chancellor's Prize for Doctoral Research 2018. Dr. Samur's research area focused on corporate heritage, brand management, brand innovation and communication, financial technology, and artificial intelligence. He has conducted projects with researchers from different institutions and organizations nationally and internationally. In addition to that, he has 12 years of experience in marketing consultation position and entrepreneur for a leading telecom company in the Middle East. Dr. Samur is also conducting consultancy business with reputable companies in MENA region. He's a member of several organizations such as International Corporate Identity Group, British Academy of Management, Higher Education Academy, and he's also a regular reviewer for several academic journals, which includes Journal of Business Research and Journal of Branch Management. Dr. Amar, the floor is yours. I will be co-chairing. Please, go ahead.
Dr. Kabali, for this introduction. It's my pleasure to be with you today, all of you in the Arab Open University in Oman. And good morning from London, as well good afternoon to my colleagues and my friends in Oman. I'm going to share this session about economy and education, which is going to be interesting. I'm going to give 15 minutes to each presenter to present his topic with, we're gonna have a room of 2 to 3 minutes for having some questions. Starting with, because actually we had already 6 minutes running from this time of this presentation, I would like to present our first presenter, Jana Jgodik, with the title of Coronavirus as a Key Enabler Toward Innovation and New Self-Reflection. So welcome, Dr. Jana, and the floor to you to start your presentation.
Thank you. Good day, dear Mr. President, professors, doctors, researchers, the lifelong learners, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this presentation. My name in German, the pronunciation in German is Jana Jgodik. I respect also other presentations or other pronunciation in different names, so that's fine for me. Let us look at brief agenda. First of all, I would like to introduce into the topic, what is situation education regarding self-reflection, issues with old self-reflection, a research question. Then I would like to address the research question with an innovative solution for new self-reflection. Conclusion for the post-COVID-19 world. First of all, in this introduction, we see that COVID-19 innovation are very similar in certain ways. They're disruptive. Especially innovation is difficult to master, causing disorder, chaos, demands specific skills. For innovation, we need a trial and error approach, because to develop something new, it could be really very challenging. And nevertheless, innovation enables learning in innovative solutions. We see in education, we do have a lot of different models, framework, approaches, but they are all old models, actually. The old models have been developed before COVID-19 or coronavirus crisis, however you call it. For example, those models, if we would just have a brief look at them, what they're talking about, they're actually here talking about experiences. When we are reflecting, means we are thinking about something or we are feeling whatever. We do have here also situations in the second, and this model also shows reflective approach is really well known in action. When we reflect, for example, we can also reflect in action. On action or the inaction, so the different parts. So to sum up this here, there are a lot of different educational models, especially regarding self-reflection. They're well known in education, they're also used in different areas, but they all have in common, it's nothing new about this model, so there is missing of innovation. So let us look a little bit of issues. What is actually missing? In those old self-reflection models, what we miss is a lack of practical guidance and first-hand examples. We lack forward thinking. It means reflections about dreams, envisioning the future. We lack in those old models, innovation with virtual team members. We lack actually design thinking models. So we see here, they don't have anything of those innovative tools that are actually needed now in order to master this virus crisis, or after the virus crisis, to become more innovative. This is exactly the research question. My research question is how to become innovative through new self-reflection. So it means we want to add a little bit innovation and not only focus about ourselves, our experiences, what we are feeling, what we are thinking. Now, you might ask critically how we are going to do it. How could we actually every one of us, become innovative by using a new self-reflection model? We look at this one. This is the answer actually to our research question, especially it has an innovative solution for new self-reflection. So how we are going to do it? Well, first of all, we can start new self-reflection with dreams. We said previously that innovation is dysfunctional. It's abnormal. When we are innovative, we are not normal. We need to get into a different stage. We cannot now be innovative. So what I'm suggesting, start with dreams. In my case here, I'm blessed. I do have a lot of, you see the description, one of those dreams, night dreams. But actually, we can start new self-reflection with dreams. So it means we get outside of our comfort zone. We experience something new. The second step is boost creativity through reflection. That means we have a dream, we have a description before, and then we think, wow, what is this dream about? We use our gut feelings. We try to get keywords. What is this dream about? Is it about virus? Is this how we protect each other with clothes, with glasses, whatever? And the next step is we try to become even more innovative at the other stage, that we engage virtual team members. You might ask now critical, but how are you going to do it? Well, from our dreams and our reflections on our dreams, what we did, take keywords. We take phrases that are guiding actually us towards those virtual team members. And then once we've got those keywords, we need a little bit more help. We need guidance, we need structure. And who is going to provide us this structure? It's actually Stanford's design thinking process. It has 5 steps. We need to have empathy, we have to define, we need to get some ideas, we need to build a prototype, and we need to test it. So what I'm doing now, I take some of those keywords. For example, let's say those glasses that I was dreaming, and then I said, well, let's look on the internet. Is there any possibility that some of our glasses are related to coronavirus or can protect them? And indeed, I started feeling empathy. That's the first step with people, wow, who are wearing glasses. Now I define the problem. So the problem is actually now, I don't know, is there anyone, can those glasses protect us? What I'm going to do in the next step, I get some idea, it means some imagination. I said, okay, let's look on the internet. I Google and find, wow, now there are some people in China who reported that actually wearing just normal glasses can protect against a virus. It's just their imagination, their paper. I said, okay, let's build a prototype from them. Could it be possible, for example, I could now wear the glasses and to see and test it, is it possible? But their study found that actually it's possible. The people who have wear glasses, that they don't have those infections, or they have not been recorded as being positive. That's just an imagination to get us more innovative. So this presentation is not about truth and not about dreams. It's about creativity. It's about how do we get innovative. To sum up, we start with our dreams, could be daydreams, night dreams. We boost our creativity by thinking, reflecting on our dreams, getting keywords to get virtual team members that we don't know engage. And then we use that Stanford design thinking process to structure, to build prototypes, to test that, to see how innovative are we with new ideas. And then we can start something new in education. So that sound is really surprised. That could be actually for International Women's Day. That's actually also today. So I'm wishing all women happy International Women's Day. So to conclude for the post-COVID-19 world is actually COVID-19 crisis and innovation are very challenging. Therefore, we need new concept regarding self-reflection, and this new concept, the study found, engage self-reflection to transformation. We need to transform ourselves to get into another stage, to think differently with design thinking. It's called forward thinking, and use a framework that could structure our innovation processes by using Stanford's D-School design thinking process. And this all will increase our innovative knowledge. Thank you very much for considering self-reflection in innovative education.
Thanks, Dr. Jagodik, for this presentation. I will give the room now for actually the people inside the chat to ask any questions and to share their idea with you if they have any questions. Any reflection for this presentation?
You can put it in the chat box if possible. Otherwise, you can open your microphones and
So I will start with the first question. Regarding
Yes.
the 5 terms of innovation that you created, how are you going, or are you planning to test these themes? Is there any special case study you're going to adapt to test your innovation key points, or how actually you're gonna verify and test these dimensions?
Yeah, that's very interesting question. Actually, I am linking that to called our seminars that are coming. They're called educational seminars for German clients. And they want, especially executives, they want a different type of self-reflection. So what we are going to do, we are getting their practical, we will get their practical experiences or dreams or daydreams about their business, and we will use that framework and to help them to create a prototype that they could test and use in their environment. But to answer your question directly, thank you so much. We can test it now theoretically, but we do have a strategy to test it practically with our clients.
Thanks a lot. Any other questions? So then, thanks a lot, Dr. Jagodik, for your presentation.
Thank you.
We're going to move to the second presentation. The presenter is Rami Abdulmonem, and he's going to present the effect of gender financial inclusion on the economic growth, a COVID-19 policy response. So it's your time, Mr. Rami, to do the presentation.
Dr. Musu, kindly unmute Rami. Yeah. Dr. Yana, you need to stop your presentation, I believe.
Dr. Rami is having two accounts. Which one?
Yeah. Dr. Rami? Yeah.
Yes.
Welcome everyone. I hope my voice is audible to everyone present here today. Good morning, dear professors. I'm very proud and honored to be part of this prestigious conference, and I am going to present my topic today on the effect of gender financial inclusion on economic growth, a COVID-19 policy response. My name is Rami Mohammed Farid, a lecturer from the Arab Open University Egypt branch, a faculty of business studies. So my presentation is going to be divided into the following. First, we're going to discuss on the introduction part, and then we're going to move to the objective and the paper contribution, and then we're going to move to the literature review, and then we're going to discuss the statistical test and the estimation methods and the results. And last but not least, we're going to discuss the conclusion and the policy recommendation. So as an introduction, we have the post-COVID-19 economy. It should entail women's financial inclusion, and women make up 49.5% of the global population. However, this huge segment of the planet Earth, they have less economic security, a lower chance for the economic resilience, and are overrepresented in the low-wage sectors. And because the solution needs to be inclusive, social protection systems that overlook gender inequality will fail to mitigate the risk of COVID-19 for women. Much worse, it will further aggravate the inequalities. This is likely to happen when women are marginalized in the design of policy and program responses, as per the latest report of the World Bank in 2020. Gender financial inclusion actually can limit COVID-19 negative impact on the economy, as the gender-driven GDP is likely to range from 10% in the advanced economy to more than 30% in the MENA region and South Asia. And it gives me a lot of pleasure and honor to be discussing such topic on the International Women's Day. And it makes this topic extremely relevant to today's global event and what we're witnessing in our communities of increasing gender inequality. Now we move to the objective of the paper, which I have tested for the impact of gender financial inclusion on the economic growth, and how availing financial services to women can have a greater positive impact on the economic growth and the GDP when compared to their male counterparts. The paper contribution resides in that the empirical outcome, or as a researcher, I have related the empirical outcome of the paper to policies that can be deployed to quickly mitigate further economic downturn caused by COVID-19. Now we move to our first part of the literature review, and I have divided it into two parts. The first is the impact of financial inclusion on the economy, and the second is gender financial inclusion. And before we just to proceed, financial inclusion is to avail decent and like an affordable financial services to the underserved segment of the community. And it has a lot, and financial inclusion has a lot to do with the realization of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals for the Agenda 2030. Our first study indicates that the low-income groups are likely to be immune to the economic cycles. So when we include them in the formal financial sector, is likely to raise the stability of these financial institutions. The second study believes that financial inclusion can have a positive impact on financial stability and the economic growth by allowing the entry of more small savers into the financial system. The third study in that part of the literature review observes that financial inclusion, when it is measured by the wider access and the use of deposit, can enhance banks' deposit base in the period of financial trauma. However, when we try to measure financial inclusion from the credit side, or when we try to extend loan to the clients, we realize that the proportion of the credit provided specifically to the small and medium-sized enterprises is likely to enhance the stability in the financial system. Now we move to the second part of our literature review, which is gender financial inclusion. And now we have in our first study in that part that the financial inclusive program are more beneficial to women than men, as women are more aware of and have access to the instruments of the economic progress. This in terms of managing the household's assets, manage the daily life expenses, and they have a higher capacity in managing their own SMEs as well. The second part of our literature review provided by a study in 2017 that lending to women is likely to improve the repayment rates in the state of Nigeria, and also the author have added that a higher proportion of female client is linked to fewer provisions or lower portfolio at risk. And that means that when women are more likely to borrow from financial institution and microfinance institution, they are likely to reduce the risk of these the risk of repayment. The third study that we have here was conducted in 2019, and it suggests that the gender gap in financial inclusion, which could be measured in terms of the access to financial system, has a huge and a detrimental negative impact on development. The last study we have is that the attractive participation of women in the financial sector allow them to better manage risk, smoothens consumption in the face of economic shocks. And actually, COVID-19 is one of the biggest economic shocks that we are facing in these 2 years, and funds households' commitments such as education. Now we move to our part on the statistical test, the estimation methods, and the results. I have divided my study into 2 basically variables. The dependent variable was the gross domestic product and at a constant local currency unit, and it was used as a proxy to measure the economic condition in the chosen samples of the countries. While now we move to the independent variables, which were extracted from the FINDEX, or the Financial Inclusion Database produced by the World Bank, and this report is likely to be produced on a 3 years basis. Our first independent variable is borrowed to start, operate, or expand a farm or business for female. The second independent variable is exactly the same as the first, but here we measure the male side of it. The third independent variable has a national identity card, and this variable has been used in this study because in several literature and in several reports, it has been proven that the use of national identity card can have a huge impact and a positive impact on the success of any financial inclusion initiative. Because in order to be able to provide financial services to the client, they should have a valid national ID. The last but not least independent variable, we have the household and the final consumption expenditure at a constant local currency unit, and this variable in specific has been used as a control variable to the dependent variable, which is the GDP. Now we move to the assumptions that makes a linear regression successful. The first is the normality test. At first, I did not have any normality, but I have used the van der Waals methods to approximate to normality. The second assumption was the linearity test versus non-linearity test, and this is another tool that has been used to approximate to linearity, and I have chosen to transform my data into the natural log transformation in order to reach linearity and to proceed with my empirical provisions. Number 3 is the heteroscedasticity test, and here we have it doesn't exist. It means that my data or my error variance are all equal, which is known as the homoscedastic. Last but not least, the type of estimation model that I have used was the least square method. Now we move to the conclusion and the outcome of my empirical analysis. We can see that borrow to start, operate, or expand a farm or business female is likely to, it is significant in predicting the relationship with the GDP at a 10% significance level, and we can see that the significance level is only at 4%. Moreover, the borrow to start, operate, or expand a farm for the business, however, for the male part, is also significant in predicting the relationship with the GDP or the proxy for the economic condition in that country. However, we can see that from the unstandardized coefficient beta, we can see that the single impact or the single effect of the independent variable female has a higher impact on GDP when it is compared to their male counterpart. That it means that when we try to provide financial inclusive products to female, they're likely to contribute a lot better than men if they have received exactly the same quality of services. Also, we have the households and the final consumption expenditure. This is a control variable to the dependent variable, and of course, it is significant in predicting the relationship with the GDP. Last but not least, here we challenge the literature review and the past reports that has been issued by international financial institutions that a national identity card is not significant in predicting the relationship with the GDP. However, the researcher came to the conclusion that maybe the existence of that variable in this assortment of independent variable do not have a direct impact on the GDP. However, the national identity card have a direct impact on the success of any financial inclusive program that is adopted in one country. Here we have the model has a quality of fit of 95%, which is indicated by the R squared, and we have the significance of the model, which is at 0, which is completely fitting in our case. Actually, this is the conclusion, and I have said it all when I was explaining the provisions of my table. Now we move to the policy recommendations, and I have come to 4 policy recommendations to increase women financial access and hence their contribution to the financial ecosystem and the economy as a whole. The policy recommendation number 1 is likely to be women must have equal access to technology as a preliminary to digital financial services, and this is likely to be achieved by increasing financial literacy program and enhancing their financial capabilities. The second policy recommendation is that policymakers need to lessen up the burden of the unpaid care work on women with linkage to a robust health system that provides a reimbursement for the income lost from health emergencies. The third policy recommendation is in time of the pandemic, the social assistance program are vital for the instant economic relief for the most underserved segment of the community, and this is likely to be done through the government to individuals or the government to the persons program, which actually has been adopted by the government of Egypt at the peak of the pandemic. The fourth and the last policy recommendation on an institutional level, the financial regulators need to institutionalize gender in their work and establish a gender focal points that uphold the responsibility of assessing the present levels of women representation within institution and women-led SMEs, and because they do not have any track record, they are likely to face a lot of obstacles trying to access a decent financial services from the financial institution, because they are considered not just women, but anyone who just new to the formal economic system. They have a lot of obstacles gaining a decent financial services because they don't simply have a track record. And this is the main objective of financial institution, of financial inclusion, that to loosen up some of the regulation to avail people and put them under the loop of a formal financial system. And with that being said, I have reached the conclusion of my presentation. Thank you very much. And now the floor is open for any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Rami, for this presentation. It's really interesting. I think we passed the time, so I would appreciate from the joins, the people in this chat room, if they could write for you some questions or some comments on this presentation and share it with you. It could be helpful. From my point, I would say to you, you need to reflect more about your research methodology. So I can't see your research methodology, how the data were collected, how many data you have been collected, as well some statistical to compare between genders. But thanks a lot for this presentation. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
If you could please close the presentation. Yeah, thanks a lot. Now we're gonna start the third presentation, and I need to invite Dr. Subramanian Muthuraman and his colleagues Muhammad Harazi and Rigaragan Virasami and Nasir Al-Yahyayi to do the presentation of SME key drivers for economic development in the Sultanate of Oman.
Thank you, Dr. Presentation visible to you?
Yes, we could see your presentation now.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, one and all present here. It's my great pleasure to present our research work on SME, the key drivers for economic development in Sultanate of Oman. So we four researchers, myself, Dr. Subramanian, and Dr. Muhammad Al-Azaizi, Dr. Rengarajan Virasamy, and Dr. Nasir Al-Yahya. The four researchers, we have started this research funded by the Research Council, TRC, Sultanate of Oman. So this was started a year back, and we just want to show you the progress of the research, what happens. So just to have a highlight about SME. So we know that SME is one of the key driver for our any country's economic growth. So now if you see every country focusing more on SMEs in developing small and medium enterprises. So the focus is to just to nurture the youngsters to promote more businesses, small businesses that will accelerate the economy of the development. That's where the main focus of SME. And if you see the studies, it shows that around 55% of GDP and over 65% of total employment is contributed by SMEs in mostly high income countries. And if you see this statistics, it gives a clear indication that there is a more scope for giving more employment as well as the contribution for the GDP growth. Even in middle income countries, it shows very clearly 95% of the total employment, it increases the through SMEs. The challenges, especially in Oman, you see, as everybody aware that the oil prices are constantly is going down. So it gives an indication that there is a need for diversification. And government of Oman already started diversification process, Tanfeed process, there they are diversifying their field to fisheries, mining, manufacturing, logistics, and tourism sector. So in these 5 sectors, they have opened up a lot of diversifications. This will enhance, this will provide opportunity for youngsters, young people, those who are in the age of 24 and above, which is around 48.79% of the population in Oman. So they just have an opportunity to come and start their businesses, which will create more employment opportunities in Sultanate of Oman. And a small snapshot of SMEs Oman, as His Majesty Sultan Qaboos has very clearly indicated that the national economy of a country is in fact based on small and medium industries. These are all the fundamentals and foundation for all national economies. Foundations for all national economies. And here we have an called RIADA, the Public Authority for Small and Medium Enterprise Development, the royal degree in 2013. The responsibility of RIADA is to strengthen the contribution of local economy through a wide range of business advisory services and training programs. It encourages small and medium enterprises, and it was growing. Okay, if you see by end of March 2020, last year, 1 year before, the statistics data says it is around 44,000 small and medium enterprises has been registered under RIADA. It is increasing from 2019 to 2020. It was an increase of 13.7% due to the diversification process starts. And now the vision 2040, focusing more and giving more opportunity for youngsters to open a lot of small and medium enterprises. And if you see the small classification as per RIADA in Oman, if you say if it is up to 5 employees, we say it's micro enterprise. Up to 25, 6 to 25 workers, it will say small enterprise, and with an investment of 100,000 to 500,000. And the medium enterprise, it's up to 100 workers, which 500,000 to 3,100 Omani Riyal as investment. Let us come to our problem statement. Why we have chosen this particular project for our research. So as I told in the beginning, the role of entrepreneurship in society becomes more predominant and giving more importance for every country, and it is also applicable for Oman, and it generates a lot of employment opportunities in local things. And the SME is contributing around GDP of up to 14%, especially in Oman, which is very good. But at the same time, we have found out from the literature that there is a lot of constraints hindering small and medium enterprise, especially in Oman, which is a lack of financial support, poor management, lack of training and experiences, insufficient profit, and low demand for product and services. These are all the few challenges which we have come across from our literature review. And the last 5 years, we have seen a good growth. And here I just provide you the GDP of the GCC countries, where Oman is slowly increasing compared to other countries. And we found there is a very clear gap in this research. We want to understand what is the relationship between the entrepreneurship, small and medium enterprise, and the So here, we want to develop a conceptual model based on our the literature survey. We want to develop a conceptual model, and we want to proceed further to that conceptual model. And the model, before I just go to the model, I just explain you the objectives. The main objective is to examine the role of SME in economic growth and development, and to assess the SME contribution to the economic development through major factors we found out is capacity building, employment generation, promoting competitive market, and technology development. We have taken these 4 independent variables, and we want to find out how it is going to impact the economy, and we want to offer suggestions to the policy makers. And as I told you, this is our conceptual model, which focusing on 4 independent variable: capacity building, employment generation, competitive market. Why we have taken these 4, especially 4 important variable, is that any country which focus more on improving the capacity of resources in terms of men, material, machine, and manpower. And this SME is going to provide more employment opportunities. That's a true and fact for every country, and the market is more competitive. Today, after globalization, everyone is having capability to enter into the market, and especially the small and medium enterprise is facing a lot of competition from the global markets. And today, the technological development, more and more new technologies are increasing, and from this COVID situation, we have learned many things on COVID, how it impacts. We have never thought that Zoom and all other medias will have big market, but technology is also giving more opportunity. So we want to just take these 4 variables and try to find out the impact on economic development, which is going to be act as a different variable. So economic development of the country is depend on capacity building, depends on employment generation, and depends on competitive market, and depends on technology, where the SMEs is going to regulate these 4 factors. The methodology which we have planned to adopt is empirical research methods, where we try to collect data from both primary and secondary. We have developed the questionnaire based on these 4 factors, and we have circulated to many of the SMEs in Oman, especially Oman, and now presently we are in data collection process, and within 1 month all the data collection will be get over, and we are expecting, the expectation from our research is that definitely this SME will provide a direction for how to execute their role for the contribution of economic development in Sultanate of Oman through these 4 factors: through building capacity, through increasing more and more employment generation, promoting more competitive market, and by through developing technology. And definitely we feel that this research will add more value for both SME as well as for government to make some suggestions. Thank you very much for your wonderful listenings. Any questions?
Thanks again for this presentation. It's really interesting to show the importance of SME on the market, especially on the COVID situation. And as everyone knows that SME, they play a strong role to even develop the economy inside the countries. And thanks for focusing and highlighting these dimensions to us. Please, if you have any questions, you could share it with us on the chat box, as actually we are running on the time. I will start with the 4th presentation for today, and it's from the educational path. I need to present Amar Ibrahim, and his title is New Learning Paths, Technology Transformation Challenges and Sustainable Education Practices. So welcome, Amr, for starting your presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Amar. Hello, everyone. Many thanks for our Arab Open University to organize this international conference about co-creating the post-COVID-19 world. I am proud and interested to participate in this conference. Actually, my chapter is about review in the learning paths, new learning paths in this pandemic COVID-19. So I need, inshallah, only 10 minutes to finish. Okay. First, I want to tell you, I am already a school principal. So we face this pandemic in our school. I married my experience and the literature review in this field together in this my chapter in our selected book. My presentation will have 5 parts. First, it will be introduction. The second will be new learning paths and what the paths we have to see in our educational world. Number 3, about the technology transformation. New learning challenges, number 4. Number 5, about sustainable educational practice. Okay. This chapter already investigates the educational technology transformations and the challenges and how we will have sustainable practices and not only during COVID-19 pandemic and also after COVID-19, how we will change our education systems in each system institution. For example, in Oman here, we follow the blended learning during COVID-19, starting from last year in March. All the school in Oman shift to online learning. From this year, we start follow the blended learning. This means some classes will be in the school, and other classes will be online. So this will help to adapt a new technology in education. Actually, when I studied my master in Arab Open University in instructional technology, I used to apply all the techniques which I studied in this master program in my school directly. Before we used to adapt some technology like augmented reality and virtual reality. This is before COVID-19. Also, in that time, we used to adapt some platforms. I trained my teacher to use some platforms to learn the concept of distance learning. We used before one platform, it's already merging with the model platform. It's called Big Blue Button. It is like this Zoom. I trained my teacher to use it and to meet their students and to upload the content, present their presentation to be near to this new technology. In this time, we not think that we will face this pandemic in the next year, 2020, but already from our experience, we are ready for this pandemic. Our teacher already trained for this distance learning. They know to use, if the student come in the school face-to-face, they know how to use the good e-learning also during the face-to-face classes. Okay. Here, the current pandemic already make a real opportunity to test success of using electronic program in distance education. This, after all country close the school and shift to online, or some country close the school totally, not online or face-to-face classes, this give us a new thought how to save our educational sector. How to invent a new technology, how to use the already existing technology to help us to continue our student learning. Here we will shift to new learning paths. From this model technology, we have provided the all and best opportunity to give student and teacher and school and all educational institution benefit to make the education more effective and more lively for the student, encourage the student to come and share in the session, online session, or to share their projects and e-activity in the online learning. Yes. About the technology transformation, I used in this chapter to review the studies that focus on distance learning and also on effective e-learning, because the e-learning and distance learning, not a new concept in our educational field, but now in COVID-19 pandemic, have been new approach for distance learning and a new approach for e-learning. So we call it effective e-learning or effective distance learning. As we told you here in Oman, we follow the blended learning, and this have many styles. Some schools have make like a flipped classroom. They use this strategy to give students some material like videos or other materials. Student, he can study in the home and come back to school in next week or after 2 weeks to discuss with the teacher or discuss online what they learning before. Okay. In this style also we have like fixed or flexed mode and useful virtual mode also. I move now to the new learning challenges. This effective e-learning and effective distance learning and also all blended learning styles have not everything, not all parts have benefits. Some parts have challenges, like to create a novel and good educational content, to make activity for the student to attract their,
sorry for interruption. Are you showing any presentation?
You cannot see my presentation?
Yeah.
Sorry for that. I think you see my presentation. Oh, sorry for that. Can you see my presentation now?
Yes.
Yes, we can see it.
Yes. Sorry, I think I share it. Thank you. Okay. So from all these challenges, also the teaching tools or aids, we need to prepare it and follow the instructional design principle and foundation to create a good educational tools. Also, we go back for the educational content. When we convert our traditional content, traditional books to e-books, we need also not like only convert the traditional books, the paper book to e-book direct without any selective for the content, without making the content more interactive, give virtual and like videos, 3D images and audios to our ebooks to make it more interactive for the student. Not only just make it as a PDF and and upload it to any platform for the student. Also, converting different needs and learning styles is one of our challenges in this pandemic. The main one and also the very important one, the teacher readiness. Some teachers have the mentality that not to use any e-learning, you don't use before to make any online session. He don't know to make good presentation. So this one need more training for the teacher, and also in the professional graduation for them need to focus in how to make the teacher ready for adapting e-learning and effective distance learning. Also for the technology availability, it's depend on the institution financial also to supply the teacher with good technology, with what they need from devices, high-speed internet is also one of the most challenges in this regard. When I speak about sustainable educational practices, in my chapter, I make it in the two sections. First one about the sustainable standards. We have from the literature review some standards to make the educational practice in a good case, in a good practice. Some of them like academic achievement result, one of the very important standards that this sustainable educational practice are going well to measure the student achievement result, also measure the human and financial resources. Can this meet and fit for the technology need to make our education more active? Also, continuous improvement for each element in educational process: teachers, content, student, educational environment, even virtual environment or normal environment, to make all this element together have all cooperation to achieve the educational goal. Also, as we said about curriculum and about infrastructure, if we follow now blended learning, we have two infrastructure: educational infrastructure or normal one, and technology infrastructure. We need to be sure that have all the quality. Also, administrative framework in our schools and institution. The technology in education transformation, we need to be sure that all administrative consider and understand the importance of make the learning easy for the students, access the content. If the school have a platform, to be sure that all teachers are use these platforms and these apps and techniques very well to teach the students. Here, this
small 1 minute extra, please. So we need to fit it on the time, please.
Yeah. How to change the normal book to e-book. Also, from the new technology, we have the interactive whiteboard. All new online session application have the interactive whiteboard, and also we have this 5G technology, e-books, 3D printing, also student ID card, the E1. In the COVID-19, when the students come back to the schools, you have to measure the temperature, have temperature sensor. All this one technology help the school to achieve the goals. In conclusion, effective technology planning can reduce all this problem that face the education from any element of our educational process, student, teacher, or parents, content, environment. If we use the good technology, also if we use the cheapest one, more technology now it's available free online, we can use it. More application have three or two version, one of them is free, so it's very nice to use it. Many thanks for you for listening to me. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for this presentation. Any questions? So I think we're gonna move to the fifth presentation. Please, if you would like to share any comment for our colleague regarding his presentation, you could share it on the chat box. I'm going now to present the fifth presentation, which is about a study of rediscovering, redesigning, and reinventing the strategies to overcome the challenges posed by COVID-19 on global education. I need to welcome Mr. Walid Hamidat and Mubarak Ali to start doing their presentation.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, yep. We can't hear you, Dr. Mubarak. If you can remove the unmute or taking the sound from your computer, because we can't hear you.
He's already unmuted.
Yeah, he's unmute. Still, we can't hear you. I think if you could rejoin us again, this would help to recover the solution. Yep.
Yes, it is better to leave and rejoin again.
Can we ask the next presenter, or should we wait for?
I will. Okay. So, I think he joined us.
Join. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, Dr. Mubarak. Should we actually move to the sixth presentation, and then we're gonna return back to Dr. Mubarak if he's not able to sort out the voice issues at this moment?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So the sixth presentation, it's about teaching how to learn and learn how to teach in a pandemic world. And I need to welcome Ayla Nikumaran and Mati T to do their presentation. Please, if you could unmute. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Is my presentation up?
No, still, we could see actually only the folder.
Your desktop.
Yeah, your desktop.
Oh.
You need to press on the presentation.
Just a second. How about now?
Yes.
We could see you.
Perfect. Okay. Good evening, all, and to the chairperson, Dr. Amar, and co-chair, Dr. Kabazi, for this is a wonderful opportunity of creating a platform for us to share the best practices in combating COVID challenges in the field of economy and education, which are most critical pillars of society. Moving forward, the year 2020 started with an appeal complementing to the visionary lines of Professor H.G. Wells during 1920, stating that civilization is a race between education and catastrophe. The foundation of the world's education system today was built on the Victorian era. Since millennia, the intervention of internet and technologies had changed the social norms and corporate values a lot. But at the same time, the evolution of technology had divided the world into huge performance gaps, both among the students and as well as the teachers, based on their access to technology and tools. Having that as a challenge already before the pandemic, the outbreak of COVID-19 had put us, the world, to travel on an uncharted territory, especially those who lack access to the technology. Aside from this technology gap, we also have global challenges to address, like natural resources, educational reforms to make meaningful outcomes, population, climate change, biodiversity, so much of the challenge while we have on hand to address. These crucial elements are very important for Generation Z to focus, which shall make their living a worth, rather just enclaving chasing the luxury. When it comes to education and dealing with the pandemics, we are talking about this exactly in a year. I'm talking from Qatar, where this is the last week when everything went normal in 2020, and we started move to the pandemic world in 12th of March, if I'm not mistaken. So this 1 year of experience with pandemic is a huge thing. I thought it's an education, but now seeing the economist and other subject matter expert, the world is progressing in the right direction. We all took COVID practices as a good lesson to learn. We had mapped the past, We are currently capturing the present needs in a faster pace, and we are reporting everything for our future references. While we all know education is the driving energy for evolution and advancement, access to the education was still a dream even before pandemics to many of developing nations, with various barriers such as societal challenges, war and conflict, child marriage, child labor, unpaid teachers, and so on. When it comes to developed nations, it's neither an easy walk. They were combating with their own set of challenges like achievement gaps, mental health, bullying, gun culture and homicides, lack of parental engagements, and so on. While somehow each other country is facing their own difficulty to attain their educational goals and literacy rates, pandemic tested the education industry and teachers to an unprecedented challenges. The measure of social distancing and health safety undermined the role of traditional classroom approach during the pandemics. So the students' learning had been, become difficult, and there are increased burden on the teachers and parents in caregiving and nurturing the students' community overall. But in contrary to the worldly observation, the GCC countries, the reason I mention GCC because my paper is to assess the response of K-12 educational institutions in Gulf countries to the pandemic and foresee the future of e-learnings and of its opportunities and challenges. In GCC, to our observation, the GCC countries were managed to respond efficiently and mobilized their classroom to virtual learning in a very agile and a fast, it's like an overnight transition and was seamless and striking. Of course, GCC's steadfast economies accrued by oil wealth had been a great support in building its capacity in terms of technology, technological infrastructure, and that made an easier access to internet and of course equipments for the students and teachers community. Although it's been said and done, the efforts of leaders and teachers who had accelerated this capacity building in the past decades should be specified and should be applauded. So narrowing line our conversation to the educational demand and ecosystem in GCC. GCC is a region has, GCC region has a steady growth in population with a huge influx in expatriates, along with the growth of national population. Due to the greater opportunities and tax-free income, GCC has the tendency to attract young expatriates and families with the children. This is a place where we come for work, and in GCC is a place where almost in an average 75% of the population are expatriates, while 25% is in an average the nationals. When I narrowline the conversation to Qatar as a sample, whereby expatriates population is on a very high note of 85% roughly, which has more number of expatriates than other GCC countries. However, the nation had planned its educational reforms since 2003 in partnership with Rand Policy Institute, who had thoroughly evaluated Qatar's then existing K-12 higher education system as well as K-12 system, and helped the nation in crafting their design for development with beautiful reform policies and practices, of course. From 2003 till 2013, MOE, Ministry of Education Qatar, in partnership with RAND, had carefully built its capacity of its educational infrastructure, which had indeed helped Qatar to meet the pandemic challenges flawlessly. Over the period, not only Qatar, over the period, the GCC built its public-private partnership in education to build their capacity and to meet 21st century learning needs. So having said GCC's capacity and its investments in education for 21st century, when it comes to innovation, Disruptive innovation is one of the pronounced aspect in innovation matrices, and a disruptive the disruption is a sudden break or interruption. So disruptive innovation is that which intends to break with established model to improve existing one. When at the beginning, like innovations and technology are not fully equipped in the educational area, COVID made a situation to mandate the established technical practices and even Luddite educators who has to push their limits to learn technology and educate the children how to through the technology, and disruptive innovation usually happens in a slow pace, then reaches the mainstream. But in COVID, the technology made a disruption in education that everyone in overnight moved to a technology-based education. And those who were prepared had managed to walk through this channel flawlessly. However, we pronounce about the achievements of those who moved forward with their agile plans in the learning path and challenges. There are a few challenges by every stakeholders of the education. For example, students, more than ever, the teachers community has a challenge in dealing with not only physical, but also social, emotional, and spiritual well-being of the children, especially when they do not deal with their peer group learning is something really strong. Children in a bricks and mortar model helps a lot in a social and emotional skills of development for the children. So suddenly a day when children are being expected to sit in front of screens and their social interactions are limited, there are a lot of challenges observed in the students' population, like lack of motivation, lack of interest, understanding the concepts, stay in synchronous learning pathway with their educators. In terms of teachers, not everyone is a technocrat, and there are teachers who had to quickly move push their limits into technological area and learn quickly so that they learn while they teach. And of course, work-life balance when it comes to teachers. They are parents too. More than ever, the demand of the parents has been increased during COVID times. So teachers who are parents and parents who are teachers, this had been a very difficult time to keep their work-life balance in par. When it comes to institutions, they went through a huge financial challenges all over the world, not only education, but educational institutions had to topple down completely their resources while they plan about their additional requirements in terms of technology and so on. So all the stakeholders, say it students or teachers or institutions or parents, everyone has to combat their own challenges. At the center, what they have to put the priority is the continuation of learning. No matter what, we all are working towards a notion where student-centered continuous learning, students are engaged and their learning is undisturbed all through their journey. This had been a paramount importance and become a unified challenge for all the stakeholders in education. When we all go through this, primary students are engaged with synchronous learning as well as asynchronous learning. They were initial few months of, say about from March to September, teachers were working together, classrooms were completely closed. That's when they realized that students' lack of motivation and their educational challenges has to be handled in a different capacities. However, inclusive of social distancing protocols of COVID. So that's where after September, most of the schools decided to move on the path of blended learning platform. Blended learning is like, it's a kind of mixed, so hope most of you are by now. When I was writing this paper, it was September, where blended learning was like, widely accepted, experimented concept among the educators, but by now it's like every other person on earth would know what blended learning would be. So there is nothing new much about it. However, there are different kind of models in blended learning, like rotational model, which is I'm limiting my conversation with only K-12 platform. So in K-12, from face-to-face, when you move ahead to blended learning, instead of completely online, you can pick and choose a model that is most appropriate for the students group. It could vary from the primary students to the middle and to the teen kids. When it comes to primary, rotation model is students rotate between online and face-to-face and bricks and mortars. This works pretty well to the primary children. And a flexible model is that core online learning in the bricks and mortars school with face-to-face support as and when it is needed. And then enriched virtual learning is completely remote online learning with supplemental face-to-face support. This is for the children with chronological difficulties, or those who has to be in a remote learning situations. So blended learning had been a very a proven, tested model that had been widely accepted in many developing nations are yet to resume back their classrooms and completely going online. Most of the K-12 sectors in the Middle East and in GCC specifically are adapting the blended learning model, and this is found really successful and engaging the students enough, and this really help in to ensure their physical, social, emotional, and spiritual skills of the students. Students are really happy going ahead with the blended learning, and even it gives the confidence, given the ensured protocols of COVID, it's giving a confidence for the parents community also to let the institutions continue with the blended learning models, which is proven as one of the successful model that suits for K-12 platform, definitely. In conclusion, we are living in a situation where the teachers are combating teaching how to learn and learning how to teach. These are two different challenges in the hands of teachers. However, like every other subject matter experts in their own field, teachers are managed to tackle it pretty well. And although this is very challenging, yet an interesting time, teachers and educators and enthusiastic researchers utilized this opportunity to mapping the past, contributing and constructing the present to its needs, and reporting the future for references to and make them understand which is successful. In terms of teaching how to learn, the teachers had go through how they need to discipline the learning, whereas with flexibility and educating digital literacy as well as digital safety, which is a paramount importance when the children are dealing with through the digital platform, and also equipping students with the right set of technology and tools that helps them learn anytime, any place, any path, and any pace. While they teach how to learn, teachers and parents community also has to combat the availability of resources. Like not all the family with more number of children, they have issues with resource planning. Even in GCC, developing nations, as I said before, they had a lot of challenges with resources in comparison with GCC. That doesn't mean that everything is going well with GCC. I had observed a few parents, they have difficulty in sharing their resources to access the technology for all the children at times together. So that requires a kind of scheduling, which is, again, the teachers community has to have in their planning. Besides which, they have to ensure social emotional well-being of every student. So this, while they teach how to learn to every student during this pandemic, this is becoming a challenge on the teacher's hand, they learn how to teach with the support of technology, say about empowering self-efficacy with technology, and identified virtual teaching challenges and alleviate the challenges then and there, and collaborate and identify the right models for every learner's choice. Knowing the reality of even Luddite educators came out of their comfort zone and learning how to reach and teach while they are students, teaching students how to learn in such testing times.
Could you please give us the last message, because actually we're due with the time?
Yes, I'm almost done. So the golden ticket of pandemic is inclusive education that could address every child's need, and blended learning is a very proven practice to this point. And thank you all for the wonderful opportunity.
Thanks a lot for amazing presentation in terms of content, in terms of information that you already present today. It's really a challenge to know how to teach and how to learn on this pandemic. From my experience in the UK, today we started again opening the schools. Universities, till this moment, it's closed, but starting from next year, the institution will be on blended teaching. So we will offer online materials, we will offer the recorded seminars and lectures, but as well, we will offer 50% of the student to attend the campus with social distance measurements. And this is leading us to think how to develop our teaching materials and our learning outcomes while we design any module or any curriculum. Thanks a lot for your presentation. I think that Mr. Mubarak, he's not attending, or he did not join us again our room. So I'm going to move to the 7th presentation, and I need to welcome Dr. Kabali and his colleagues to present the 7th presentation about the digital technologies in higher education institution. So welcome Dr. Kabali and your colleagues to present this presentation.
Assalamu alaikum. It's indeed my pleasure. Is the slides up?
Yes, we could see the slides. Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. Fantastic. It's indeed my pleasure and privilege on behalf of my team, Dr. Muhammad Al-Hazizi, Dr. Walid, Dr. Rangarajan, to present some of our thoughts, experiences, and our research work to the august audience of researchers, professors, and friends. Today, I'm going to present on digital technologies transforming higher education institutions. So this, as a part of our ongoing research, I would like to acknowledge our research project funded by the Research Council, Sultanate of Oman, now presently Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation, Sultanate of Oman. We are running a project titled Developing a Conceptual Framework for Transforming Higher Education Institutions Digitally in Sultanate of Oman. So let me just share with you the origin of this, the project. Actually, in our university, we not only teach, do research, but also we do some consulting and training. Particularly, our interest lies at digital transformation of businesses, digital business leadership. So in that context, since from the business faculty, we are advising organizations. So we thought that why can't we look into within, which is what is happening in the digital transformation world of higher education institutions. Some of our research questions are higher education institutions ready for digital transformation? And if so, right, what kind of framework they need, and so on and so forth. So this is how we started this project. So what I'm going to present is, first I'm going to present two conceptual frameworks we have developed so far based on literature in both the quality and the digital technologies and transformation. And also, as I said, based on our experiences with the executives from the industry when we do our executive education program, as well as our consulting assignments. So, and followed by the study which we are going to present in this conference. We are going to start with the limitation. This is the outline of the presentation. We are going to start with the limitations of the study, objectives of the study, background literature, methodology, findings, discussion, and conclusion. But finally, we are going to end with future direction of this research. As I told you, I'm going to present two conceptual frameworks based on what we have learned so far in this the world of digital transformation, which is impacting the entire world. interestingly, this research project we conceived in 2018, we presented, we got the funding in 2019. But now it has become more accelerated. Now today we are talking about not transformation, but acceleration. So therefore, we are really happy that we were able to foresee something which can help higher education institutions to accelerate their transformation. So what we did is, parallelly, when we looked at higher education institution, we looked at two sets of literature. One is one of the very important primary focus of higher education institution is to get the quality assurance of higher education. So this is on one side. And secondly, the world is transforming digitally. So we tried to combine these two ideas, and we said that how these quality processes, for example, we took the OMAN OAAA model, Oman Academic Accreditation Authority model, which suggests that there are 9 domains of quality assurance areas. So we said that we are going to investigate those 9 domains and what and where the digital transformation is possible. So this is our basic question with which we approach this whole project. So what we found is, from the literature of digital transformation and based on our experience with executives, we found that there are 3 important insights we derived. One is, when we just look at the digital transformation, which can be conceived as digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation. Digitization is all about datafication, where try to capture as much data as possible in any ongoing organization, and then use that data to empower the processes. For example, when you're talking about student advising as a process, you're talking about student engagement as a process, right? So how this data can empower those processes, and then finally, it can lead to digital transformation of higher education institutions, wherein we are imagining an autonomous, educational institutions or a new, totally new, business model, arriving at a new business model. So that is what now we are able to see a post-pandemic or post-COVID world. People are talking about complete transformation of business model of higher education. So this is one insight we got. Second insight we got is digital transformation, because general assumption is digital transformation is all about technology. Even this morning, the keynote speaker, Engineer Maqbool was very interestingly pointing out Chief Digital Officer, the need for Chief Digital Officer, where he said it is more of business and less of technology. This is another insight we got, that digital transformation is more of a strategy and innovation phenomena than a technology phenomenon. Of course, technology is the enabler, but if we are not able to understand the technologies, where and how it is deployed, we cannot create any value. So the ultimate objective of digital transformation is value creation. So value creation comes from strategy and innovation, where technology is an enabler. So this is the second insight we got. And around that insight, what we found is, when we talk about strategy and innovation, then we need to talk about the other associated features, like people are very important, because when you talk about innovation, people and capabilities are very important. Culture is very important. And primarily we found, based on our interaction with the industry experts, we found that leadership, unless and until you have a strategic vision, forward-looking perspective, and change-oriented mindset, digital transformation may not be possible. So therefore, these are some of the associated aspects where we need to focus. Any organization which wants to transform needs to focus. So this is our understanding, and this is a conceptual model which we presented in British Academy of Management as well as another conference. So these 2 insights we derived. Now, when we talk about digital technologies, what we thought is, okay, let us try to figure out what are the technologies and what kind of value it can create. So this is our next question. So that led to this study. But let me start with the limitation of this study. This study is based on analyzing and synthesizing some selected scientific literature, not a comprehensive study, but it gives you a limited picture of these technologies, its capabilities, benefits, and risks. So this is a simple framework. Our objectives is to analyze and understand the applications of selected digital technologies. Of course, today we are talking about a number of digital technologies, right from artificial intelligence to Internet of Things to big data to drones, many digital technologies. So we took some selected digital technologies and found and tried to figure out how it transforms higher education institution, and to provide a perspective on benefits and risks. Of course, already, whenever we think of anything new, which also brings some kind of risks, so we thought of identifying. So when you looked at the background literature, even 2020, we found that a lot of universities and higher education institutions are talking about technologies and using technology to power their business models. And there are a lot of digital education is happening, so there are a lot of evidence. Even there is a study about how IoT, Internet of Things, can support higher education. So what we did is, based on our research, we found that this IoT, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, robotics, and blockchain are some of the primary technologies which are driving transformation in higher education institutions. So we just did a qualitative exploratory study, and these are some of the findings. Quickly, some of the technologies, potential technologies in IoT, which includes RFID, QR code, cloud computing. This morning also, the keynote speaker was talking about cloud. Cloud computing, how cloud can empower organizations to go digital, right? Where he even shared an example of how banks, within 2 days, they were able to shift their workplace from the organization to their home and continue their work seamlessly. So this is what we are imagining. Of course, when you talk about RFID, QR code, cloud computing, some of the applications are, student attendance, advising, and so on and so forth. When it comes to artificial intelligence, yes, student advising, we can use artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning. Also, we can monitor their learning. For example, today we are talking about ebooks. One of the major benefits of ebooks is it can be datafied, so we can understand where the student is focusing and we can direct them to the right place. So these are some of the possible advantages of using these technologies. And of course, robotics is going to play a very important role in transformation. For example, whether it is learning to learn or creativity and so on and so forth. These are some of the areas where these technologies can be very, very useful. And finally, the blockchain technology. So blockchain technology is all about trust. So today we are talking about certification, right? So one of the major applications of blockchain technology, of course, there are many, but just because of want of time, I focus on certification. If you want to have an authentication of your certification, we can make it using blockchain enabled. So these are some of the ways by which it can create. So the point we want to highlight here is, based on our study, it is high time. Of course, COVID has accelerated it. It is high time to look into digital transformation, digital technologies, how this can transform the processes. Particularly when we talk about the student engagement models, the staff engagement models, we engage with the outside world, which is with industry and community engagement. In all these aspects, these technologies can be deployed creatively and innovatively, which can create enormous value. So the future directions of our research is to find out, to overcome the limitations of this study. As I said, it is very limited. So we are trying to have a comprehensive, systematic study of these technologies. And our final aim is to develop a conceptual framework which can guide the higher education institutions in Oman about their digital transformation initiatives. And also, we are planning to develop a digital maturity model for Oman higher education institutions. As we all know, the value of digital, any maturity model is to handhold them stage by stage. So we are trying to, develop a model in that space. Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity to present some of our thoughts with the august audience. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Kabali. Any audience would like actually to reflect or giving any opinion? Yes, Jeffrey, you raise your hand.
Yes, sir. Sir, I need some clarifications from the presenter, sir.
Yes, Mr. Jeffrey, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Sir, I have some questions like, students do feel that they have inequality in access to technology and inequality in access to network. In that case, how can this be settled? Or is there any other possible solution that you are trying to do it in your upcoming research?
Thank you very much. That was a wonderful question, but I think that is beyond the scope of our research. Our research focuses on how higher education institutions can transform digitally. Of course, these are other associated infrastructure issues. Of course, we are aware of it, that there is an inequality which the governments and at the public level, there are a lot of initiatives to bridge that gap. So I hope soon we will be able to bridge that gap. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And I have only small suggestion. If you can do actually a comparison study between two countries, will actually add more strength for your framework.
Thank you.
So to be honest with you, here in the UK, we are using the reports now at this moment, AI on our teaching, which actually the Oman institutions, they will get really very benefit from this kind of studies. So if you could do a comparison studies by two different countries, two different systems, to build at least a global framework that could be used everywhere. And this will lead you to have more facilities for publication for this framework.
Thank you, Professor. Wonderful. I will write to you. I will take your advice and support to conduct this comparative study. Thank you, Professor.
Thanks a lot. I think we on time at this moment. We have still 20 minutes, and we have the last presenter, Mr. Muawiyah Ghali from the Open University, Arab Open University in Sudan, and he's going to present his idea about reconsidering the dilemmas of EFL virtual classroom in the light of the COVID-19 pandemic, the case study of Arab Open University in Sudan. So welcome, Dr. Muawiyah.
Sorry, could you hear me, please?
Yeah, we could hear you now. Yes.
Thank you for allowing. Okay, thank you very much for allowing me this great opportunity to pass reconsidering the of virtual language classrooms, the case of all in Sudan. I want us to share with you my presentation.
So excuse me, your voice is not clear.
I need some time to. Sir, I need just.
Dr. Muawiyah, could you please make sure?
Share presentation.
Dr. Muawiyah, first, we can't see your presentation. Secondly, there is an echo from your side.
Okay, I'm trying to fix that. I'm trying to share the my presentation. Okay. Yes. I'm trying to share my presentation with you. I have here some language classroom.
So I think we had a technical issue with our colleagues Muawiyah, and I need to give him. We still have more than 18 minutes.
Let's give him a few minutes to try to restart. Let's give him a few minutes, inshallah.
I think he's back again to the chat room. And he's joining us now at this moment. Yes, Dr. Muawiyah, you are mute, I think so, or we can't hear your sound, but we could see a presentation.
You are sharing screen. Sorry for I encountered some technical problems. Now, can you see my presentation now?
Yes, we could see your presentation.
Online sessions. So this data was
I think it's clear that the sound is unclear, and we cannot understand anything. So,
Dr. Muawiyah, Dr. Muawiyah, we can't hear you well. I think you have echo, and I think the internet connection is a bit. We had a problem in the internet connection. So if you could please check your internet connection, because the sound had a lot of echo and it's not clear totally. Otherwise, there's another solution. You could close your presentation and try to talk to us about your idea. This might actually help to have a clearer sound. Rather than presenting and taking more bandwidth from the internet, you can only talk to us.
So if you want, I can share. He has shared my presentation with me. Okay, I can share the presentation. He can speak from there.
Yeah, so Dr. Muawiyah, if you could actually speak, and actually we're gonna present your slides.
Okay, I can speak, and while I can share my presentation if that is possible. Hello?
Yes, we will share your presentation, but you can't talk to us.
Hello? Yes, this is my presentation. Thanks very much for your help. The paper actually discusses the challenges of online language classrooms at our Open University. The study considers the experience of delivering foundation English courses at the Arab Open University in Sudan, via means of video conferencing technology, the COVID-19 outbreak. So this paper explores the use of the ICT or information communication technology to support the e-learning and how traditional on-campus language classrooms could be possibly be replaced by cyber classes at the time of crisis. This is the paper outlines. The paper consists of this part of first the introduction, literature review, the major research questions, the research hypotheses, the research methodology, the participants, the instrument of data, or instrumental tool of data collection, data analysis, and then finally conclusion. Could you just move to the second slide, please? The second slide. Yes. So as I have said, this is the experience of delivery foundation a lot of universities of conferencing technology and military outbreak. It will explore how the campus and platforms could possibly be by some cyber classes at the time of crisis, mainly from readiness perspectives. Please move to the another slide. In this connection, the Arab Open University that in the last year set up some synchronous online sessions to groups of English students over the period of pandemic as a complement to the on-campus regular tutorials. You may remember that for the OU teachers that the OU Council held an extraordinary virtual meeting in the early period of the COVID-19 in order to discuss different potential consequences of total lockdown declared by many countries so as to curb the spread of the virus. So consequently, the council meeting recommended all branches spreading over the 9 Arab countries, including Sudan, to move towards online teaching for the purpose of teaching and learning continuity. So here in this part, I'm just giving a general overview or a background of that. Why Sudan branch has shifted to this model, this delivery mode. This is actually was done as a result of the AOU Council call for all branches to shift towards online teaching. So, but it is unfortunate that several complications arise, several difficulties, complications arise while implementing this type of distance delivery. This is mainly case of Sudan branch due to several reasons, but the most important one here is the less developed technological infrastructure and the for the e-learning. In this internet tool. So this is how the in the first days of the YGC program, the IT department, in collaboration with the teaching program coordinator, TCE, set a schedule for the online sessions. The teachers met their students ceremoniously from home 2 hours a week for each language module. The LMS, during this time, the LMS was used as a vital learning platform in order to communicate all issues concerning the implementation of the online learning, including announcements, responding to the lectures, updating the students, news, receiving those complaints regarding running on the visual classes and responding to their requests for technical support in addition to online conferencing. So the coordinators are the former
Excuse me, it's obvious that the sound is cannot be heard, is illegible يعني.
It's a problem in the mic from this.
Yeah, so يعني I think we excuse يعني Dr. Muawiyah, but we cannot understand. If he could just probably quickly proceed with the presentation without يعني the voice يعني.
He can stop the sharing. He can stop the sharing of the video.
There is no video for him, so I think it's only an internet connection. I think if we could pass the presentation slides to the audience.
Sorry for this.
Dr. Amar, can you request him?
Yes. Hello. Hello.
Yes, Dr. Muawiyah.
Sorry, I don't know whether you can.
Because the sound, we have distortion and we have a noise, we're going to show only your data and your slide information to the audience.
In keeping the time in mind, I think we can request him to conclude his presentation with concluding.
I think if we could jump to the conclusion, and we're going to ask him only to talk about the conclusion.
Yeah.
Because it shows a lot of statistic and experiment outcome.
If you can hear me, I can go on with this.
Yeah, Dr. Mari, if you can give us the final word regarding your presentation and the outcome.
Yes.
Okay. So thanks for sharing this presentation. Sorry for the issues that we have due to the internet connection with Dr. Muawiyah. It was my pleasure to share this session with you all in terms of the topic economy and education. It was a pleasure to have this amazing presenter with really very helpful papers, ideas, and reflections. and I wish they could continue on progressing on their research and taking some recommendations that we highlighted you to their presentation. At the end of this session, I would thank you all for attending, and as well, I would thank the hoster, which is the Arab University in Oman, for hosting this event. And I will leave now the mic and the speech to Dr. Kabali.
Thank you, Dr. Amar. That was wonderful. Now I request Ms. Amani to take over of the final session.
Thank you, doctors, chairs and co-chairs, all the researchers, authors. Now we have 15 minutes for any final feedback and discussion.
Hello?
Yes, Maria.
Now it's good. I thought the voice. I think that unfortunately I did not reset my some internet because the internet connectivity is bad here. But I hope that I can give us some opportunity in the future to present a paper. Like to spend my time to the editor of all of this book for making this available. I'd like to ask everyone for consideration.
Thank you, Doctor.
Amani?
Yes?
Yes, I just would like to comment. I think we all have learned today, in the morning and in the afternoon, that COVID-19 has presented both challenges and opportunities. And it has, of course, as we all are still living this experience, affected the economy, the work, the education, and many other aspects, either positively or negatively. But I think we are looking forward to utilizing these challenges which were presented by COVID-19 on rethinking of our old ways, whether it is in education, whether it's in economy, whether it's in customer service, and moving ahead with new and innovative ideas. And if we can talk about higher education, certainly the issue of online learning and distance learning has acquired a new meaning now and a new level of importance. It is obvious that it is a valid mode of teaching and learning. It can provide authentic teaching and learning. There are aspects and challenges related to student participation, to student assessment, of course, but all these can be managed with new thinking and new ideas. So I think it has presented challenges, but also many wonderful opportunities. And I think higher education is yet to learn and yet to encompass these new directions in higher education to provide better and more interactive and more robust education and teaching and learning. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Musa. I can see also big thanks and appreciation being written in the chat box. Now I invite Dr. Subramanian Raman for the concluding remarks. Dr. Subramanian, the final mic is with you.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. It's my immense pleasure to give a concluding remarks and
record my sincere thanks for this international conference on co-creating the post-COVID world, exploring sustainable path. First and foremost, I would like to record my sincere thanks to His Excellency Professor Muhammad Al-Zakri, President of AOU, for encouraging us to conduct this conference right from the beginning. And also our sincere thanks to Professor Syed, the Dean of Faculty of Business Studies, for facilitating and motivating us for this initiative in Oman. And we thank him. And we would like to thank our beloved director, Dr. Musa Al-Kindi, for his continuous encouragement and support throughout the conference, right from the beginning of this concept of bringing out the book, edited book, and as well as the conference. And our sincere thanks to Dr. Andrews from Coventry University and Engineer Muqbal, CEO of Oman Data Park, for their keynote address, which add more value to our conference. Our sincere thanks to Dr. Louisa from University of York and Dr. Amar Samur, University of London, for accepting our invitation and be our conference technical chair. And they have made the session very lively and very fruitfully. Our sincere thanks goes to all our reviewers. We had reviewers from across the world to review all the papers, and we have received many papers, and we given valuable suggestions to bring out a very quality research output. So at this regard, we have to thank all our reviewers, and my sincere thanks to all my colleagues in the Faculty of Business Studies. Our program coordinator, Dr. Amar Samur, Dr. Mohammed, Assistant Director for Academic Affairs, and Dr. Kabali Subramanian, Dr. Rangarajan, Dr. Nazar, Ms. Afshan Yunus, Mr. Syed, and Ms. Amani for giving support. And right from the beginning of this conference, they have given their full-hearted support in this and to make this event a grand success. Our sincere thanks to Dr. Sherimon, Mr. Munsar, and IT support for making this event run smoothly without any technical difficulties right from the beginning. And our special thanks to our PRO, Mr. Saif, for his interest and make this event globally and reach globally. And today we had around more than 120 participants in the inaugural session and around the world. And we have received the papers from around 10 countries. And last but not the least, our beloved contributors from various countries who have contributed their valuable research and making this conference a grand success. And I also thank all people who have directly and indirectly support this conference. And we wish that everyone had a very fruitful time, and hope this conference brings some kind of strategical thinking, and we want to make this event as a continuous process. And we have already shared our feedback links with you. Please give your valuable feedback so that we will try to improve ourselves in all these areas, and we will meet you again in next conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Mike.
Doctor, not able to hear.
Mike.
I would like to thank everybody for their participation and contribution. I hope we all benefited, and we hope to see you in future events organized by AOU. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor.
Bye.
Yes, Amani, you can.
Amani, any conclusion? Amani, can I end the meeting?
No, Doctor, the final conclusion was with Dr. Musa, so we can conclude. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.